May 5th, budget review session to order. I'm going to ask our clerk of council, Sandra Davis, if she will do a roll call vote so we will know which councilors are here. Sandra?
Thank you, Councilor Thomas. Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Here.
Councilor Barnes.
Here.
Councilor Crabb.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Present.
Councilor Garrett.
Present.
Councilor House.
Here.
Councilor Huff.
Here.
And Chairperson Thomas is present. Councilor Thompson.
Here.
And Councilor Woodson.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have 10 members of council present.
And I see the mayor.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Sorry I was late.
I would remind the participants, if you will please mute your microphone if you are not speaking so that we don't get the background noise. But this is the first of the regularly scheduled budget meetings that council typically has. I want to give you just a little outline of what we do for these meetings. And then I'm going to ask the mayor and the city manager if they will just bring some opening remarks for us as we start the meeting. These meetings are scheduled now for the next, today and the next 3 Tuesdays. If you need a timeline for that, it's on the city webpage. We will have presentations by staff. The technical piece of this will be handled by our finance director, Angelica Alexander. We will then have presentations from various department heads who wish to address council. Council will have what we call our add delete list. And that is a list that council makes to add things to the budget or to delete things from the budget. We will put whatever item a councilor wants on either the add side or the delete side. And then our last meeting of this series, we will go through that add delete list to make the decision of whether or not we are going to add or delete that specific item. As the department heads make their presentations, there may be questions by councilors. I'm going to ask that you be patient with me and with each other as we go through this. This is a new way of doing things for us, and we're trying to make sure that we let everybody be heard who wants to be heard, but not over somebody else who's also talking. So we just need to make sure that we're doing that. And then if there are other things that may come up during the meetings, we will certainly let you know and keep it up as much as we can. This meeting, like all of our meetings, is being televised live on CCG TV. It is also being live streamed. If you wish to do that, it's on our website. No, I'm sorry, YouTube, and look up CCG TV, and you can live stream it. It will also be available on YouTube after the meeting is over, but probably not until tomorrow morning at the earliest. I'm asking our CCG TV people to get it up as quickly as possible so that those in the community who may want to see what we're doing can get to it. I'm going to, at this time, Mr. Mayor, if you have any opening remarks that you would like to make to the group and to those who are watching us.
Well, thank you, Madam Budget Chair. I'll try to keep it pretty brief. I guess you could sum it up in what a difference a quarter makes. 4 months ago, we were excited about presenting an aggressive budget to this group, and looking forward to your deliberations on how to best provide for the citizens of Columbus and the people that take care of them over this next year. Our whole world turned on a dime, and I will not go into detail at this point of just what an incredibly dedicated group of folks that we had working on it from an administrative side, because I know the city manager will make reference to that. But I will tell you that we were intentionally very austere. We are just like every household in the city of Columbus right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, a little bit of fear, and a good measure of optimism as well. And to that end, we felt it was the responsible thing to do would be to be extremely careful in the front end of this budget, give ourselves time to see how the economy evolves. I personally think that many parts of it are going to recover quicker than some folks think. I think our sales tax revenue, while it's going to take a hit, I think that there was enough momentum in this community going, and I think we'll recover that to a point where we see some of those numbers get back to normal. Hotel motel tax and some of those others are more difficult to predict, as is the health of a lot of our small businesses. So we want to take another look at this, and I know that the budget chair has expressed an interest in doing that as we get farther down the road into this budget year, into this fiscal year. And I think that's a prudent approach, because if the funds are there are a lot of requests that you may hear from some of these department heads. Every one of them is worthy. Many of them we had intended to try to put in the budget on the front end, but again, being things as they are, we opted for a more conservative approach. I look forward to answering any questions that the Budget Review Committee has. I'm very grateful to be working with all of you. I think you will all do an amazing job, as you always do, and we'll try to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, would you want to bring us some opening remarks?
Thank you, Madam Budget Chair. Let me just say welcome to the first of a series of budget meetings that are certainly different. And Madam Budget Chair, I believe this is your first year as Budget Chair, your second year as Budget Chair. So welcome to the new normal, second year as Budget Chair, and welcome to each of the councilors. But I just, at this time, want to thank the mayor for his leadership through this unprecedented pandemic that happens to coincide with the budget process. But Mayor, if I could say anything good about it, I'm glad that it happened as we were coming to the end of a fiscal year and preparing to go into a new fiscal year, that we can better plan for ending this fiscal year and then starting and getting through the next fiscal year. Really want to thank, again, you, Mayor, and then I want to thank our Finance Director, Angelica Alexander, and her team, her staff. They have done a phenomenal job pulling all of this together. And of course, the Deputy City Managers were there. And then I want to thank in advance the department heads and elected officials for their understanding and cooperation, because this is certainly going to be a different year. So look forward to getting through this budget process, and in the end, having a vote on the second reading of the budget, that we can go into the next fiscal year with our eyes open. So thank you, Madam Budget Chair, and we look forward to the process.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And Ms. Alexander, when we get down to your portion of the program, would you please, not program, meeting, would you please be sure to give us the calendar for our meetings and when it will be ready for public meetings and those kinds of things? Just put that on your schedule. You probably already have it there. One of the things that I would like to do as we begin this because this is a very different year, is to talk about some of the concerns that counselors have about the budget process, specifically because of the financial crisis that we find ourselves in and the uncertainty. And I'd like for the counselors to talk about some of those concerns. I will raise one to begin with. We typically, after we have adopted the budget, do not revisit the budget as a budget until mid-year, which is January. And I think this year, given what we are looking at, I think I'd like to request, Mr. City Manager, that we schedule at least quarterly reviews instead of just the mid-year. Let's have some quarterly reviews. And we may have to do it more often than that if the situation intensifies. But at least, you know, quarterly until we can see how it's going and so forth. And so just that I would like to do that. I don't know about other counselors, but just to make sure that we're on top of whatever's happening financially in the community and in the budget process. And at some point, Mr. City Manager, I would like for someone, and I don't know that it's you or it's possibly somebody, probably somebody on your staff, to talk to us about some of the federal programs that are putting money into governmental agencies and so forth, what those are, and some of the rules and regs, not necessarily today, and certainly not right at this minute, but to have that information would be very helpful. I know there are all sorts of new finance grants and so forth coming up. So at some point, would you please, you know, put that on our agenda?
Sure.
Okay. What about other counselors? What are some of your thoughts and concerns as we start this out? Anybody?
Madam Chairman, Councilor House, I guess a major concern that I have, and I know none of us know the real answer, but our budget this year is down 2%, but I've seen estimates much higher of concerns at the state level on how far down their revenues may be. And that makes me worry that being 2% down is not enough, but I don't know what is enough. So I'm just concerned about any increases in any of the city departments or agencies, and how we handle a big downfall in revenue, if that is in case what's going on, and how soon we will know how big that deficit is or is not.
Councilor House, I did ask our finance director, and I think as part of hers, she's going to talk to us about what we know now
Okay.
in our sales tax income and some dates and so forth. So that will be helpful,
Good.
I think, along the way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Or John, I'm sorry, Councilor House, you have
No, that's
anything?
Judy, this is Amy.
All right, Councilor Woodson.
With the quarterly that you want to have the meetings, wouldn't that tell us a little bit where we are if the budget or the funding is going down or it's coming up a little bit? What John was saying, we would have a better indication doing this quarterly, or do you think monthly would be better?
Well, that's up to council. I think at least quarterly, because that is absolutely my thought behind that is it recovering? Is it not recovering? How much is it moving? Which direction? And we can always change that, I think, if we need a monthly, and certainly as the finance director and the city manager deal with this, if they see that we need to change it and bring something to us more often than that, that certainly would be something that I think we need to take a look at. And remember that even after we adopt the budget, the council, and is the city attorney on here?
I don't
They
see
are.
him. Oh, there he is.
Okay.
They're here.
I believe that the council can, even after we adopt the budget, make changes in the budget. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, you can, but it has to be by formal ordinance.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, that if Councilor Woodson, if we see that the bottom has really dropped out more than we had anticipated, according to what the city attorney has said, I think we can go in and make changes. If it has risen, which we're all hoping that it will, we can go in and make changes. Is that right, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, it is. Of course, you'll have certain fixed costs, obviously, such as the salary and pension things. But other than that, yes, the budget can be amended easily at any time you want by ordinance.
Okay. Councilor Woodson?
Okay. You were good. Thank you. I just want to kind of try to help, John understand that we can probably look at it more often, or we can do some adjustments, because that was my understanding, that at any time we can amend it. Of course, it takes an ordinance, but we can do it at any time if needed.
And Madam Chairman and Councilor Woodson, one of my major concerns in this is any department or agency that relies on sales tax in particular for, like OLOS, for example, and how that affects public safety. I'm very interested and down the line potentially concerned on how those departments are going to react to a problem, if we have a problem with the amount of revenue coming in. And that could affect everything from pay or positions, depending on how good or bad it is, or even the crime prevention program. And I know we don't know what we don't know right now, but those are the kind of things that just really concern me as we go forward. And so I appreciate whatever the finance director can tell us, and those at least quarterly updates as we learn better where we really are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilors?
Madam Budget Chair, this is Glenn.
Councilor Davis?
Yes, and I share some of those same concerns that John was kind of highlighting, especially in trying to match up and what we see coming in from the state and the way that they're forecasting now, and then what we have. I'm having a hard time matching up our numbers with the state's numbers. When I look at our numbers, they look a lot more positive and a lot more optimistic than the state, which leads me to have a concern, because usually we're kind of lagging what happens at the state level. I've looked at a lot of just kind of in the beginning, just kind of digesting a lot of the numbers, and I'm a little concerned how we're forecasting. I know it says that we're being ultra conservative here, and it talks about a lot of, just reading through here, it talks about a lot of revenues that have been coming in from the past that, well, for lack of a better word, that we've been not really knowing that they were there. I mean, they're there now. I see a lot of increases in a lot of the budgets across the board. And I also see the sales tax as being, estimated around 34 million, which, those are putting a lot of question marks in my mind. I also see that, we ended last year with 75 days in the reserve. Now it's 72 days. And I'm just seeing a lot of questions that I have to really, when I'm trying to balance all this, are we just, what is our strategy? Are we just going to kind of do this as we go and see what happens? Or are we really kind of getting out in front of this, because here's my concern. I'm really concerned about making promises and commitments to departments who are trying to operate and provide services to the citizens and meet those needs, and at the same time having to go back in there and keep telling them cut. When they get to a certain point, it's going to be really, really difficult if the revenue's not coming in. There's so many unknowns. Okay, that's number one. There's so many unknowns, and there's going to be a continuing impact as we go. One of that, for example, I imagine you're going to get a lot of appeals on properties. A lot of appeals are going to come through on properties, and I don't know how that's going to reflect. I don't know how the collection rate's going to reflect. We won't even know about that, I guess, until January, how that all plays out. But I would like to have a better understanding before we make these commitments to whether it's to our employees. I would like to understand that strategy and how it matches up with some of these projections across the board with the state, and then where we're at, and then how we plan to move forward. I just, it's hard for me to add it up, Councilor Thomas, and I just want to make sure that we're not projecting something that at the end of the day, we didn't see this coming, and now we got hit, and now we got to make severe adjustments here, which is going to have a counterproductive effect, I think, on the operations of the city. So those are just kind of some of my concerns, and I'm sure as we go, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the more in-depth, detailed items within the budget.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. Anybody
And
else?
one more thing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Councilor Thomas, when I look at the increase in the tax digest and some of those things, we got a lot of stuff that's out there that I don't know how it plays into the picture, but we've got a lot of these, for example, the tax allocation districts and all. We got a lot of that stuff that's included. I believe it's incorporated into the tax digest, but the city won't benefit from any of that new revenue coming in. So that too concerns me, how that plays into the picture of total revenue that the city can operate off of.
Okay. Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem Allen? Mayor Pro Tem?
I was on mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you wish to give us your thoughts this afternoon? Maybe not.
Well, let me just say one thing real quick. When we talking about the add and delete list earlier, let's remember, if we add something to the list, we need to be thinking about how we're going to fund that. So we need to be looking at or thinking about where the funds will come from. So in other words, if we cut something, you can utilize those funds if you have the votes to do so. But just be thinking of, instead of thinking about how to add something, we need to be also thinking about how we will fund that. So just wanted to put that in there for us to be thinking about. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Huff?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was standing up stretching.
You have any words of wisdom for us today?
No, I like what I heard. As long as we are deliberate in what we do and take our time to look at the numbers. I was listening to you and Councilor Davis, Councilor House, and everybody spoke, Mayor Pro Tem and everybody, Councilor Woods and everyone. But bottom line is we need to proceed with caution and to make sure that, like Councilor Davis said, what we put in there we can keep, so that we don't run our department heads crazy coming in every quarter trying to ask them to take another cut. So if we take our time and do what we need to do, I think we'll get through this. And just watching the people move about a little bit at a time, things will get a lot safer, I'm sure, going into June, July. And I think our numbers may increase. And if we don't get hit too hard during the winter months, I think we may bounce back a little bit better than we thought we would. I'm good.
Hope so. Councilor Barnes?
I just think we're wise in sticking with what your suggestion is about having quarterly meetings because this situation has been totally unprecedented. And so I know just because of the fact that we've never gone through something like this before, that many of our departments will be having problems. And I think we're smart in anticipating that and in programming, having meetings to address those particular difficulties the departments might have. That's about it.
Thank you, Barnes, Councilor Barnes. How about Councilor Crabb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate that we're not coming into this budget review out of fear. And what we're saying so far, it's not out of fear. We are being prudent. We're being cautious. And so the decisions that we're going to be making during this time are going to be not from an attitude of fear, because I do not believe that making decisions fearfully is ever wise. And from what I've been seeing with the counselors, what they're saying, what our discussions have been, I think we are being concerned, but we are not fearful. We feel confident. We just celebrated extra days in our fund balance just a few months ago. So I think we were heading in the right direction, and it has put us in a strong position. And I think by the decisions we make, we'll rebound quickly and put ourselves back in a good position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Garrett.
I share the same feelings, but I'm also in agreement that if we don't meet on a quarterly basis, we don't know if this is going to be the new normal. So we're going to have to address the budget more often, and we're going to have to address it to see how this is affecting all of our different cycles. So I am concerned that we may not have cut enough when the state is saying that they're cutting such a higher percentage or expecting such a more significant decrease in revenues. So I do think we're going to have to take, really look at every single addition that we're putting in this budget. But I'm in agreement, particularly with you, Councilor Thomas, and Chairwoman Thomas, that we need to be looking at this on a more frequent basis.
Great, thank you. Councilor Thompson, I know this is your first budget session. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Sorry that it has been particularly this dramatic, but I'm wondering, what about you? Do you have
well, there's not too much that I can say, Chairman Thomas, but the only thing I would say, I understand that we are in uncharted grounds, and it's going to take all of us to bring our minds together.
Great. I felt that it was necessary for us to go through the list of counselors and have everybody speak to make sure that we're on the same page. And if there's anyone that something came to you while somebody else was speaking and you want to chime in again, now's the time.
Judy, this is Gary.
Yes.
I would like for us to think about holding monthly budget meetings for at least maybe 2 to 3 months, starting in August. Let's get through. There's really no need for us to come back and meet again in July after we just passed the budget in June. But I was thinking if we meet in August and then September, maybe do it 2 months just to kind of get a feel for where we're headed, what the revenue's looking like, and then go to quarterly meetings. I'd like to hear what others think about something like that.
The floor is open.
This is Charlotte, and I agree with that.
Gary, this is Mimi. That's why I was saying, maybe monthly or we could do quarterly. And that's when Judy said we can see how the process goes. I mean, Chairman said we can see how the process go, and then from there we can decide. But that was the reason why I was saying probably monthly for a little while. But Madam Chair, you're the boss here. So, but I just want to get a good feel too, because I am kind of nervous looking at what the state is doing and looking at where everyone's been the past month or so. But either way, I think as a team, as long as I've been here, I feel we work well with one another. And if we see a crisis, I feel comfortable that we'll reach out to each other and say we need to come together to make sure everything's well for the well-being of our citizens.
Councillor Thomas, if I may, we do already, I know we already get like a monthly kind of a snapshot of departments and all. We do that already. I'm not sure. I think I understand the question about just trying to be prudent and stay ahead of trying to understand the impact, especially the impact to our revenue and our operations. I would like to hear, my concern there would be giving enough time. There's a lot of moving parts out there. You got to remember, there's a lot of moving parts with revenue coming in, when it comes in from the state, when we collect revenue. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't happen every month. So I'd like to hear more from the finance department, how they view it and what would be better for them to give us a more accurate, have time enough to pull. It's going to take a little time to pull all this stuff together outside of a monthly snapshot, and I would like to hear their thoughts on it, because I think that's most important, is how they can give us, we can give them the appropriate amount of time that they can give us a very accurate snapshot of where we're at and what we need to do. And I don't know, that may be a month, maybe 2 months, maybe quarterly on a 3 months after August. But I think there's a lot of stuff that between August and January that's just collections start in, I believe, I want to say October, but I'm not sure on the state level when we're starting to get revenue all in. So that I would like to get their input on it, so we make sure that we're all on the same page and we're not putting an extra strain on the time frames and the burdens of departments, because I know they're going to have their hands full.
Anybody else? Then what I'd like to do, Mr. City Manager, if you and the finance director, maybe you could come back to us next week with a recommendation. Is that too quickly for you to do that? I think some of the things that Councilor Davis is saying need to be in that recommendation. When do we know about sales tax? When do we know about property tax? What would be, is this something that we need to do in a separate meeting? Is it something we can do in a regular meeting? Mr. City Manager, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think, and certainly Councilor Davis, I appreciate that consideration, because we've got to kind of see how things are going to develop. And so I think, Madam Budget Chair, if we could, at the May 12th council meeting, have a recommendation for you and the members of council and kind of the timeline we think we should be coming back, whether it's after the first 30 days, which we just may not have enough information, or after the first quarter, perhaps it'll start rolling in. And then if you want to have a monthly meeting because of how it's coming in after the first quarter, then certainly, but we'll have a recommendation for you at the May 12th meeting.
Okay, is that satisfactory to any? I think that'll work.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I would say, remember, we still will do the monthly finance update, so you'll be getting that as well.
And I think that from what I'm hearing some of the councilors say, Mr. City Manager, what we're looking at here is a little more in-depth than what we typically get with the monthly report.
Sure.
We don't want to do away with that monthly report, but a little more in-depth.
Sure.
I'm sitting here thinking about an experience I had a number of years ago. I lived in Orange County, California, when they declared bankruptcy. And some of the fallout from that was something nobody had ever expected. For example, they had to lay employees off. They laid off the some of the tax assessors, not all of them, the guys that go out into the field. Well, in California, if you get a tax assessment, you have 45 days to appeal. I mean, the county has 45 days to answer your appeal. If they don't answer in 45 days, you get it. So if you have a $100,000 piece of property, and you say, I think it's only worth 50,000, and the county doesn't answer in 45 days, it's 50,000, and that's what you're taxed on. And nobody thought about that. Whatever you do, Mr. City Manager, do not let them lay off the people who collect the taxes. But that was one of the things that happened that nobody had anticipated. So yeah. I'm sure there'll be things like that as we go along, that we never thought of. We never thought about. Anything else?
Yeah, one more thing that I'd like to see, and not today, but I think it's important in this mix that the council understands other aspects of potential needs that need to be addressed, and that would be, Ms. City Manager, I've been thumbing through your letter to us and to the city on management, and I know it talks about some capital improvements. Maybe I don't think there's a lot of capital replacement. I mean, that's probably when I get in here. I think we probably eliminated a lot of capex and replacement and capital needs like that. I'm sure that's an area that's being managed, but I did see some money that was put in there, a little bit of money, I guess. I think it was more on like road projects and paving and all. But I would like to understand that how we're going to have some needs in that area of having to replace things. Things break down. You're just going to have to replace it. The other thing would be emergency matters. Depending on what it may be, how we're going to accommodate that, whether it's catastrophic or whether it's, for example, the one year we had, what was it, $1 million that we had emergency request for the jail. Imagine with the government center and all, you never know. But I would like to know how we plan to address some of these potential unseen big expenditures, if I may, that might be lurking out there. We know they pop up every year. We don't know when, but they pop up, and I'd like to know how that plays into our budget, because some of this stuff you're not going to be able to just put it off. You're going to have to deal with it, and help me. I'd like to understand that, how we're going to address some of those things, and then any other need. I guess it would be more on the possibly on the personnel side, overtime and things like that. Just depending on what. We don't know what's going to happen in the fall. We don't know if we're going to get a resurgence. There's a lot of things that we don't know about what we're dealing with right now. But if it does have an effect, where are we going to dig from? I need to. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying, City Manager, right? Just,
absolutely.
Another category of the equation of the budget, but we need to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had discussion about that. In fact, Finance Director Angelica Alexander has specifically addressed that subject. So we'll talk about that later.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I hope from the tone and the content of these remarks that everybody understands that I think councilors have two goals. One is to take care of our city and its citizens, and the other is to take care of our employees. And my idea may be different than your idea, but they're all worthwhile and they're all worth exploring. And I think that's one of the things that the finance director and I had a conversation just yesterday, and we talked about we need to have plastered across this this TV show the words flexibility. We've got to be flexible to do what needs to be done. And unless there's something else, I'm going to turn this over to our finance director, Angelica Alexander. And I'm going to ask, I think that most of what she's going to be doing will be a PowerPoint type presentation. So I'm going to ask that the counselors and those who are on this call, please mute your microphone, and you may want to mute your, well, you won't be seen if we're doing a PowerPoint, but and then if you wish to ask a question of Finance Director Alexander, please, if you then unmute your phone, we will know that somebody, unmute your mic, we'll know that somebody has a question. I'm going to try to answer that. I'm going to depend too on the finance director, Ms. Alexander. If she sees somebody with a question that I don't see, that she goes to that, and that we try to get as much of this taken care of as we can. So with that intro, I give you our finance director, Angelica Alexander. Ms. Alexander, you're on.
All right, thank you, Madam Budget Chair. Before I get started, I just wanted to see if there were any additional comments from the mayor or the city manager at this time concerning some of the things that were mentioned.
No, ma'am, none from me.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Madam Finance Director. I just want to say again, thank you to the mayor and council and to the budget chair. And we've heard all that you've said, and I've taken notes as you were talking. And I heard from the budget chair that all of the council members, the mayor, have the same thing in common, and that's to take care of citizens and employees. And then I do like the comment that Councilor House made, which is so true. It sounds cliche-ish, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's a fact. But I can tell you, and I made some notes here, hopefully I can read my own handwriting, but there's good news and there's bad news as we deal with what we are about to, or what we're dealing with. But under good news, I just made a note that the tax ad valorem, tag ad valorem tax from the state, we budgeted $4 million, and we're currently at $6.34 million after 7 months, and we project we will end the year at $7 million. That's good news. We expect a 1% increase in real property digest, but collection rate was lowered to 96%. So that's some good, some bad news. The insurance premium check that we received was up $900,000. Franchise fees up $525,000. As a result of moving the health department, that we anticipate we're going to get $390,000 in state revenues as a result of renting a portion of that. And so there's some good news, but there's bad news also. And the sales tax and hotel motel tax will be significantly impacted as a result of COVID-19. The sales tax impact to be determined, but we have planned for the worst. We project an 8% reduction from fiscal year 20 projection. We projected $37.6 million in FY20.
Mr. City Manager, say that again. How much
we
projecting?
We project an 8% reduction from our FY20 projection. And our FY20 projection is 37.6 million. So we expect to collect, as we deal with COVID-19 and go into this new fiscal year, we projected 34.8 million. So you can see that's bad news. And then when we look at hotel motel tax impact, which yet to be determined, however, we project a 50% reduction in fiscal year 20 with a 63% rebound in fiscal year 21. This means we would go from a projected 5.3 million in fiscal year 20 to 3.6 million in fiscal year 21. And I heard Councilor House talking about those who rely on sales tax, and he was mentioning other local option sales tax, but we have those agencies out there. The Civic Center gets 2%, the Trade Center 1% of the hotel motel tax, River Center 1%, and Convention Visitors Bureau 4%. And then they pass on money to the arts. And so if we go from a projected 5.3 million to 3.6 million, those agencies are going to take a hit. And that's bad news. And but other bad news is you'll find is that we anticipate we're going to be down 400,000 in occupation tax, down 200,000 in court fines and forfeitures, 150,000 in selective sales and use taxes, 45,000 in business regulation or alcohol licenses, and down 105,000 in various user fees that come in through the various departments. And then other bad news, and I'll wrap this up, is that I sent out a story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution where Governor Brian Kemp directed state agencies to plan for a 14% budget cut for fiscal year 21. And he has indicated that no agencies or areas of state government, that includes the education and you name it, but no agencies are exempt from submitting a budget reduction plan. And so that's bad news because it's going to trickle down to us. And then I've been sending staff these articles that I read in AJC and other newspapers across the state where cities and counties in Georgia, they're sharing their bad news through the media. With sales tax revenues dropping, Peachtree City will lay off part-time employees. Cobb County city leaders are tightening budgets, freezing new hires, delaying pay raises, and bracing themselves for major revenue losses. These are all news stories. Smyrna, they estimated 1.8 million in revenue losses for fiscal year 21, representing about a 20% loss across most income streams, including property and alcohol taxes, business licensing, and fees for activities, programs, and recreation resources. They will lose $330,000 in hotel motel taxes and will use reserves to balance their budget. And so we hear these stories. I've read them from Marietta, Ackworth, Austell, Kennesaw, Powder Springs, Macon, Savannah, and other cities across Georgia. All have similar stories. And so we are no different in Columbus, as you know, and we must prepare for difficult days ahead of us. We've tried to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And this has been communicated to department heads and elected officials. So I say all of this in hopes that as they unmute and talk to you, that department heads and elected officials will keep in mind that we are going to have difficult times just like the others have shared theirs. And so as they come to the mic today and in the coming weeks, I hope that they'll remember this. And then I pulled a note from Dr. Jeffrey Dorfman. I went to a meeting back a year or so ago. He's an economist for Governor Kemp. But he was talking about the economic outlook for Georgia and local governments, and especially during recession. And the note that I took in this little book that I had my notes in is I pulled it out today. Now is not time to say we have this extra revenue. Let's start a new program. be conservative, he said, in budgeting. Dr. Jeffrey Dorfman said, make sure you have money in the bank. Don't assume your reserves will continue to grow in the coming year. Do more one-time things and less ongoing programs. And he says, if you have a pension plan, you know, if you have a recession, the stock market will not keep going up. So if your pension fund is underfunded, it will not get better. I wrote that advice down for him, and I thought I'd share it today as we prepare to go into this budget session. Madam Budget Chair and Finance Director, I just wanted to make those few comments.
Madam Budget Chair, I have a question for the city manager.
Sure, ask him.
Ms. City Manager, and along with what you're saying, I agree 100%. I know that, you know, in the past, we've had problems in collections till just recently. We've started collecting what we all, I think, would agree our fair share of sales tax. When money gets tight, sometimes people like to hang on to it a little bit longer. I'm a little concerned about that, that we might be back in the same position that we were a few years ago. I don't know. I hope so. But what is the city's position? Why are we so confident that we're going to generate $3.8 million in sales tax off a penny? I'm having a hard time with that. I know last time during the recession, Councilor Thomas talked about it the other day about the sales tax, that it never came in at what we projected, and it was actually lower. And we're still right about where we've been collecting. Why are we so confident that the sales tax is going to come in at that amount?
Well, when you say at that amount, and let me just say that the screen went out for a good portion of what you were saying. I don't know if it's something with you, Councilor Davis, because you're breaking up, and I probably missed a portion of your question. But as you know, we are we've always been conservative in our budgeting. And when we look at sales tax today for March collection, sales tax came in for March down 4%. But when we look at our sales tax collection from start of fiscal year to date, as March collection came in, we're still up 4% over that same time period. And so we have lost in that amounts to about $140,000. And so in our finance director, I got to say to you, whether it's projecting the digest or projecting sales tax revenue, and you heard me talk about those revenue sources where we came in better. For example, in the tax ad valorem tax, we budgeted $4 million. After 7 months, we're at we budgeted $4 million. After 7 months, we're at 6.3 million, and projected we will end the year at 7 million. So we are conservative in projections, and I think we've done well with that. I didn't get all of your question, but I hope I may have touched on something you asked, because I didn't hear your question.
Well, somewhat. I guess I go back to, I know the first quarter was not really impacted by the virus, the pandemic. I think now we're into it after the shutdown, after the shelter in place order. I think we're talking about the 2021 budget. I know the third and fourth quarter is what we're really talking about. If you look from a national economy standpoint, my question was, why are we so confident that we're going to generate 34.8 with a penny? The splots with the old, or not splots, but the old loss and the loss, that we're going to generate that kind of revenue under sales tax, and we know it's going to be impacted.
Okay, well, let me just say this. At the end of the last fiscal year, we collected 36.5. We were slated to collect 37.6. Remember, I told you that we've budgeted 34.8. So we went back and we looked at the recession collections back in 2008. We looked at 2010. In 2010, we collected like 10.4 million, excuse me, 38.4 million. And so instead of the 37, we collected our record, and the trend was 36.5. We projected 37.6, and we were on target to get it, or we are on target to get it. We've gone way back to the 2010 level or 2009 level at 34.8 million. That's what's in the current budget that you have. And we feel good about 34.8 million based on a projected 8% decline in sales tax. It's projected 8% decline. So that's why we're comfortable with it.
Ms. Alexander, you ready?
Okay, yes, I'm ready.
You're it.
All right. Okay. Madam Chair, you mentioned about the schedule. I want to make sure that I touch on that.
Ms. Alexander, before you go on, would you just give us a little idea about what your agenda is from here on in today's meeting? What can we expect? You're going to go over the budget book. Tell us what.
Yes, ma'am.
Look forward to.
Yes, ma'am. So there are 4 presentations on deck for today. The first one being the budget overview, in which I'll give myself, and I'll try to move through that as quickly as possible because immediately following that is a healthcare update from our benefits consultants, NFP. They're currently on because I asked them to join about 30 minutes early. And they were slated for 3 o'clock. So like I said, I'll move through that budget overview as quickly as I possibly can. But then there's a healthcare update from NFP. Following the healthcare update is a budget presentation from Fire and EMS, Chief Lang and staff. And then immediately following him is a budget presentation from Victim Witness. The Director of Victim Services, Shelley Hall, will be making that presentation. So in regards to the schedule, today being the first meeting, slated from 2 to 5 p.m. We may just actually end up closing the meeting out at 5 p.m. The next meeting is slated to immediately follow the regular council meeting. There will be a separate Microsoft Teams invite for the budget review session than the council meeting. So just whenever we end the council meeting next Tuesday, May 12th, we'll start with the budget review sessions. Approximate time is 12 p.m. and that'll run through 3 p.m. The next budget meeting that we'll have will be May 19th. I did send some information, a question, I suppose, to the city attorney's office to see how we would facilitate that meeting, if it needs to be in person or if it could also be by Teams. And they may have replied back to me. I just haven't gotten to that email yet because I've been participating in this meeting. So we'll know fairly soon or some point this week if we'll hold that May 19th meeting via Microsoft Teams or if it'll be at some alternate location. We'll also have, those meetings, I'm sorry, is scheduled for the May 19th meeting is scheduled from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we are building in a brief intermission for that meeting. So we're not all sitting in front of our computers until from 9 to 2 o'clock. And then the last meeting, the budget review session, will be from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. And it'll be prior to that regularly scheduled night meeting. And the only item on the agenda will be the add delete list if there is anything to discuss. In regards to the add delete list, Madam Budget Chair, I do have 2 items that I do need to add to that list as staff adjustments. There were 2 budget neutral reclassifications that were inadvertently omitted. And so the add delete list that I'll send out at some point before Friday will have those 2 budget neutral staff adjustments. They are included in today's presentation that I'll give. So I'll mention those when I get to that point. All right, so Jeremy, if you could cue up the presentation, please. Okay, so our agenda today is just to, within this presentation, very quickly go over the budget process and schedule, which I've really sort of highlighted on. I'll provide an update or an overview of our operating funds to include any capital and CIP, agency appropriations, non-operating funds, other local option sales tax, T-SPLOS, and our healthcare update. As well as department presentations that will be given after this one. So the budget process. The budget is submitted to council by the mayor no later than 60 days prior to the start of each fiscal year. The budget includes operating and capital expenditures, which are accompanied by revenue projections. The budget includes a budget message from the mayor, which contains any major policy changes, a general overall summary, and other information that may be deemed appropriate. The budget is publicized by advertisement in the newspaper, and hearings for public comment are advertised as well. And we must do all of these things, which is adopt the budget ordinance and the millage ordinances along with any other applicable ordinances before the 1st of July. So the schedule, I just went over the schedule. I'm not really going to hash through that, but we'll have budget review sessions every Tuesday, starting today through the month of May, with the final meeting being May 26th, in which council will approve the items on the add delete list. During the month of June, we'll put notices in the newspaper for public comment, and we'll hold public hearings for taxpayer bill of rights. And again, trying to figure out how we'll hold those hearings, those public hearings, whether or not it has to be face to face, or if it could be via video conference. You know, just really consulting with the city manager and the city attorney's office on what that would look like as we get into the month of June. So we'll have the first and second reading of both ordinances. And one thing I will say in terms of the millage ordinance that I found out about yesterday was that we'll probably have a delay in the due date for our property taxes. I know the tax assessor provided an update to council at the last council meeting concerning the status of her office and what's all going on with that. And so I did receive an email yesterday evening from the tax commissioner who is requesting that the first due date for collections be changed from October the 1st to October 15th. So there's a 14-day delay in the due date for the property tax, the first installment of our property taxes for FY21. So FY21 operating funds, the revenues are 278.
Miss Alexander, before you move on, would you please provide us with, as soon as you get them, the which departments are coming on which days, in case there's a department that a counselor has a question about, they can let you know beforehand and we can get that person scheduled.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So revenues for our FY21 operating budget is $78,933,850, with expenditures rounding out at $280,461,642, which requires a use of fund balance of $1.5 million. So some of the assumptions for FY21, there is a slight decrease in the millage from FY20. The debt service millage decreased by 0.13 mils. So there is a slight reduction to the millage rate for FY21, a 1% projected increase in the real property digest with the 96% collection rate. And as it stands right now, there is no subsidy included in the budget for the Integrated Waste Fund or the Civic Center. Subsidies to the E911, I do apologize, it says FY20 assumptions, it should say 21. Subsidies to E911 and the golf courses are included in this budget for FY21. The value of 1 mil being 4.7 mils, and that is for operating. Value of 1 mil for debt service is just over 5 million. Included in the budget is a COLA, cost of living adjustment of 2% for active employees and 1% for retirees to be effective January 2021. As the mayor mentioned during the budget presentation last Tuesday, these are obviously included in the budget so that we can, look out for our employees. But if it comes to where we're not able to do that, obviously that's something that being that it's put off until January 2021, we'll just have to take a look at it at that time. Health insurance, we're continuing the contribution strategy of 70-30 for active employees, and the rates remain unchanged for yet another year. I believe this is the 4th year in a row where we have no increase to our health insurance premiums if you participate in the wellness program. So employees are really taking advantage of that. In terms of the millage rate, the millage rate that's still subject to the 9 mil cap in Urban Service District 1. There are no changes in the millage except for the debt service millage, which has decreased by 0.13 mils. It was 0.47 mils for FY20. It'll go down to 0.34 mils for FY21. So our recommended operating budget, as you can see, the general fund represents over 55% of the overall operating budget. The other local option sales tax fund is second at 13%, while the paving and the medical center funds round out the top 3 at 5.6 and 5% respectively. So as far as the revenue, where does the money come from? This chart just depicts our revenue sources by type. As noted here, most of our revenue is derived from general property taxes, which is close to 30%, and sales taxes being the second largest source of revenue at 26%. So where does the money go? This chart just shows expenditures by function. As shown here, you can see that public safety represents 38% of our operating expenditures, while public works is the second largest category at 10.2%. This chart just shows the operating budget by type. You can see that personal services, which are the employees that we pay and the benefits associated with those employees, are over half of our total operating budget at 55.6%. So the general fund is balanced at $155,455,189. with no use of fund balance from the general fund. The general fund accounts for normal day-to-day activities such as police, fire, public works, parks and recreation, and the courts. And it is primarily funded from sales taxes, property taxes, and franchising fees. In regards to the personnel changes in the general fund, the only items included in the mayor's proposed budget are budget neutral items. The first being for the city manager's office, the television station manager, reclassification from a G19H to a G23C. And I'll just make mention that all of these personnel changes were reviewed by our classification and compensation consultant, Columbus State University, and it agrees with their recommendations. Within the finance department, there's a reclassification of, we're changing and it's really a retitling. It's a position that we have been filling as a customer service representative, and it was a accounting technician. And so it's just one of those reclassifications where we're making a correction to align the job duties with the appropriate title. There's a payroll coordinator reclassification of a grade 14 to a grade 16. Information technology, there are several title-only changes included in the budget. There's a part-time data control technician, grade 12, going to a part-time administrative assistant, grade 12. Network manager, grade 22, title change to network operations manager. Program and development administrative, a grade 21, having a title change to program and development coordinator. 3 application support analysts, changing that title to application developers. The GIS supervisor, changing that title to PC services supervisor. 2 host computer operators, changing those titles to 2 PC technicians. There's a lead host computer operator, grade 13, that's been reclassified to assistant information technology director, G25. And there's 2 permit technicians, a grade 10 in inspections and codes, being reclassified to 2 permit technicians, grade 12. And engineering is a title only change for a senior engineering technician, grade 16, to a senior traffic operations technician, grade 16. In public works, there's a small engine supervisor, grade 15, being reclassified to small engine supervisor, grade 16. And also in public works, a maintenance worker 1, grade 7, to a communication.
Unknown participant is now joining.
There's also in public works an electrician, grade 14, grade 14, being reclassified to grade 16, maintenance supervisor, electrical. The 2 budget neutral reclassifications that I am requesting to be on the add-delete list as staff adjustments are for the police department and fire and EMS. For the police department, it's an HR tech for police, grade 12, being reclassified to employment coordinator, grade 14. And for fire and EMS, it's a fire payroll technician, grade 12, being reclassified to employment coordinator, grade 14. In the clerk of superior court, there are 3 reclassifications where these folks are being put out on the scale. The senior deputy clerk, grade 14E, to senior deputy clerk, grade 14G. Senior deputy clerk, grade 14H, to senior deputy clerk, grade 14I. And then the assistant chief deputy clerk, grade 18A, to assistant chief deputy clerk, grade 18C. So the deletions, these deletions are helping to fund some of the budget neutral reclassifications in the applicable department. In the information technology division, there's a host computer operator position, grade 12, that's being deleted. And in public works, a fleet maintenance technician 2, grade 12 position being deleted. As far as capital outlay, the general fund.
Before you leave the personnel, Ms. Alexander, I know that what you've just gone through is in the recommended budget book, pages 8, 9, and 10. Is this online anywhere for the general public to look at if they wish to do that?
Yes, ma'am. It is online on the city's homepage under popular resources. The FY21 recommended budget book is there. And so they would see it there on pages 8, 9, and 10, as you mentioned. Also, on the finance department's website, under financial planning, the recommended budget book is there as well.
And the only reason I draw that to people's attention is that there's a little more information in the book about these positions if you're interested, you know, in, for example, what's on the screen now, the info technology, it tells you how much the deletion of that position generates. So that's the kind of thing you can get on there. Thank you, Ms. Alexander.
Yes, ma'am. So again, as the mayor mentioned, at the presentation of the budget, there is some capital outlay that's included in the budget, but all of these capital purchases will be delayed until mid-year. And that is, you know, obviously a policy decision, so that we can, you know, sort of see where we are at that particular point in time, and if we could, you know, afford to make these purchases that are included or that were included in the budget. But capital outlay in the general fund is about $489,023. Inspections and code slated for a replacement of 1 mid-sized SUV. Engineering, Councilor House, did you have a question?
Well, yes, Madam Finance Director, I just wanted to make sure I heard you right. Did you say that all of these capital expenditures are delayed until we do the mid-year review, and then we'll decide to buy them or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Engineering, what's included is a replacement of a F-150 full-size regular cab truck. For public works, there's a Coates tire machine. This is a new item for the fleet shop. A livestock trailer, which is a new item for animal control. And then a full-size F-150 crew cab truck for facilities maintenance. Also included for Parks and Recreation is the replacement of an inmate van, the replacement of 4 zero-turn mowers, and a Brutus roller, which is a new item. Believe that is something that helps maintain the clay courts at Cooper Creek. The tax assessor's office included in the budget for 2 replacement mid-size Chevy Malibus. Fire and EMS, included in the budget for fire and EMS in the general fund is 100 pieces of personal protective equipment. These are replacement items, 3 personal protective equipment extractors, and 3 personal protective equipment dryers. In the public defender's office, there's also included $5,500 for computer replacement to replace some computers, desktop computers with laptop computers. Also included as CIP or as part of the capital improvement program is $250,000. Last year's allocation was $1 million. This is for the demolition of structures.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
So the general fund balance, as you can see here, we ended FY19 at 81.23 days, and our initial projections for FY20, where we'll sort of end up for FY20, is at 75.93 days. There are some things that are obviously taken into consideration when projecting the fund balance. Some of those things being some of the items that we have budgeted, included for use of fund balance through the current year. One of those, couple of those items include the court management system equipment that we asked council to approve about 2 months ago. As well as some use of fund balance for the Virginia College renovation project. So those items are taken into consideration as we close out FY20, and as we go into FY21. Apologize again, it should say 21 there. There's a difference in the reserve days that it takes to operate as we, sort of initiate these new long-term leases and that sort of thing. We have to take that into consideration in terms of any operational increases that we have when we are calculating the value of daily operations for the general fund. So in the stormwater fund, revenues are budgeted at $5,617,620. Expenditures are balanced at that same amount. There is no use of fund balance for the stormwater fund. The millage rate remains the same at 1.24 mills in Urban Service District 1 and 0.20 mills in Urban Service District 2. And the stormwater fund accounts for activities restricted for stormwater and drainage, and it is primarily funded by property taxes. The stormwater fund budget is actually 4.25% lower in FY21 than FY20, and that is largely due to the discontinuation of the title ad valorem true-up. As the city manager mentioned, it's good news for the general fund, not so good news for all the other funds that received motor vehicle ad valorem taxes. So in the stormwater fund and under personnel, there are budget neutral adjustments. There's a deletion of a grade 12 correctional detail officer, as well as an addition of an equipment operator, which is also a grade 12. Small amount of capital included in the stormwater fund budget, $124,641. For engineering, this budget is shared by engineering and public works. The capital outlay for engineering is for a laptop with a docking station. It's a replacement at $2,109. And then for public works, there's attachments for the skid steel loader that was approved as part of the FY20 budget. There are additional attachments that's needed for that particular item that's included here. The gator with the herbicide spray attachment, that is included at $36,000. 10 tablets are included. The flatbed dump truck with the 12-foot body is included, as well as a dual axle utility trailer at $6,000 and a dual axle equipment trailer at $12,000. CIP included in the stormwater fund is $1,398,661. And I do believe as we next week, when the Deputy City Manager Hodge presents the transportation projects, there'll be some more discussion surrounding the stormwater fund, CIP. The paving fund is balanced at $15,772,479, with expenditures being the same. There's no use of fund balance here. The paving fund accounts for maintenance improvements to roads and bridges, and it is also primarily funded by property taxes. The millage remains the same at 3.44 in Urban Service District 1 and 0.55 mills in Urban Service District number 2. Personnel, there are no personnel adjustments in the paving fund. Capital, very limited amount of capital in the paving fund. Again, this is one of those funds that saw a reduction in the motor vehicle ad valorem taxes. So the budget for it is about 5.43% lower in FY21 than FY20. But capital outlay here is all for public works. There are 2 trailer mounted extenuators, $40,000, a flatbed dump truck with a 12-foot body for $45,532, and 11 zero-turn mowers, which are replacements at $88,275. CIP from the paving fund is $1,334,380. The medical center fund, 3 mills are projected at 13,400,000.
Madam Budget Chair, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Madam Finance Director, I wanted to stop you there. I've been kind of patiently waiting on that matter with the paving fund. How much are we actually earmarking for paving?
Well, the CIP from the paving fund is 1.3 million, and in terms of resurfacing, the Deputy City Manager Hodge will go over that budget and the amount for that at next week's meeting.
Okay, we don't. All right, we don't have that number. I mean, we don't have that number available. I mean, we got to know how much we're using, right? What the budget is. You just told us the CIP. The CIP was for something totally different. What about the? And the fund is down. It's down. So what are we budgeting for paving?
The CIP, we utilize the CIP for road resurfacing and road projects.
Yeah, but
Ms.
didn't you just
Remind us what CIP is.
It's capital improvement program or projects.
Okay.
Didn't you say that was already earmarked?
Yes, it's 1.3 million from the paving fund for paving funded projects such as resurfacing or other road improvements.
Yeah, I see that on the paper, but I'm asking you if it's already earmarked for a specific, correct?
If it's earmarked for a specific project, the Deputy City Manager Hodge will go over that when she does the transportation project update next Tuesday.
Okay, well, let me just make a note of a concern. That does raise a red flag with me because I think we all understand that we've got some serious issues out there with our roads right now. And I'm not so sure that just continuing to do potholes and patching here and there is going to make a difference. It's getting bad out there. That really concerns me on the amount of money. And the reason I asked the question earlier about the sales tax twofold, because we use a lot of that sales tax money to do this kind of stuff on the infrastructure side. But I'm not so sure that we've got anything earmarked on the infrastructure side to take care of this paving matter of our streets. The other thing about the sales tax is that we run our public safety across the board on that. So that's why I asked that question, in an environment where you have extremely high unemployment and a lot of underlying impact within our community that we're hearing about with corporations and companies and just things that are happening out there. That's why I want to know how confident we are with that sales tax number, because these are the areas it's going to have a severe impact if we don't get it right. And if we have a shortfall, it's going to have a severe impact. And I don't know if we're just able to just go ahead and find that money and cover the cost of such an important agency or such an important need. So that's why I'm asking that, and why I would like to understand how we're going to address that. And I think my fellow council members feel the same. Not only that, I'm getting consistently a number of calls about paving, and I imagine all the road construction projects and all are going to be limited, but we cannot neglect paving, resurfacing.
Yes, and Deputy City Manager Hodge is on the call. I defer to her to respond to you regarding the transportation plan.
Yes, sir. We're coming back at the next council meeting to provide council with the proposed transportation plan, which will include resurfacing and the amount that we would submit as a proposal for the upcoming fiscal year. Again, resurfacing and road improvement projects has multiple funding source. There's an allocation in OLOS, which I'm sure the finance director will get to. There's an allocation in the paving fund. There's also the T-SPLOS discretionary funds, as well as the LMIG allocation that we receive from the state each year. So we'll have all of that packaged for council and a recommendation on how those funds should be utilized in the upcoming fiscal year for council's consideration.
Okay. That's good on that subject. I'll wait until we get further down. I got a couple more questions. Thank you, Madam Budget Chair. Thank you, Director Hodge. Deputy City Manager Hodge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we were here. The Medical Center Fund, 3 meals projected at 13.4 million. Proposed budget just over 14 million. And the Medical Center Fund accounts for funding for indigent hospital care. It is funded solely with property taxes, which accounts for that from that 3 meals. We are currently under contract with the Medical Center Hospital Authority to provide inmate medical care. And currently in the budget, there's a $600,000 transfer from the general fund included to help cover the cost of any excess inmate medical care. Currently the hospital, the way the contract is devised, we have $1 million allowance for care, and once we reach that allowance for inmates, the city and the hospital authority shares the cost at 50% each. So the $600,000 transfer from the general fund helps cover any excess inmate medical expenses. So the integrated waste fund is balanced at $13,270,000. The integrated waste fund accounts for refuse collection, disposal, recycling, and landfill operations. Currently, the residential rate is $18 per month, and there has been no change to this rate since FY19. There is no change included in the FY21 budget as well. Included in the operating budget, there are debt service payments for existing capital leases for equipment, which amounts to $1.6 million. And the equipment that we currently have under lease are 34 garbage trucks, 2 haul trucks, 2 full-size F-150s, 4 grab-alls, and 2 bulldozers. So there are some budget neutral reclassifications, which are title only changes in the integrated waste fund. The compost manager, grade 16D, being reclassified to recycling center line supervisor, grade 15F. Landfill supervisor, grade 16, being reclassified to compost manager, grade 16. And again, these are title only changes. There's a small amount of capital outlay included in the budget for the integrated waste fund, the replacement of a grab-all trash loader. Councilor Davis, did you have a question?
Yes. I just want, Madam Budget Chair, if we may, just kind of like the paving matter, on the recycling, I'm getting a lot of questions about the recycling in general. Are we going to have a presentation that and how it's what we're doing and how that's functioning over there and where we're going in as we move forward?
We may not have that in the budget review, but I'm sure that we will have it in the regular council meeting next week. Is that right, Mr. Mayor? Are you there? Mr. City Manager?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I couldn't get unmuted. Yes, absolutely. We can have a discussion about the recycling.
Okay, let's do that in the regular council meeting rather than in the budget hearing, if we can. And we'll have an opportunity, Councilor Davis, after the regular council meeting, we'll have a budget meeting. So if we need to address it, then we can do that.
Yeah, and if you may, just right, in that discussion, can we also understand the impact that we're having? Because we used to bring in revenue through recycling, and I imagine we're not right now, but it's my understanding that the operation is shut down. I'd like to understand that a little bit too.
Okay, Mr. Mayor will take care of that for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Alexander?
All right. So there's a full-size F-150, a forklift replacement, replacement of an inmate van, and then a trailer for glass. That's included in the capital outlay for the Integrated Waste Fund. The E911 fund is balanced at just over $4 million. The E911 fund accounts for telephone subscriber surcharges and collection for emergency dispatch. And this is primarily funded through the $1.50 surcharge that is applied to every landline, every wireless phone, as well as any prepaid phones. The state took over collection of this surcharge, this fee, as of January 1, 2019. Revenues for the E911 fund have been on an upward trend, which required a reduced amount of subsidy from the public safety OLAWs. This year, the subsidy from the public safety OLAWs, if we need it, is only $600,627, whereas last year it was $939,000. The Economic Development Fund, the budget for it is $2,258,867. The Economic Development Fund accounts for 0.50 mills, and it's used for attracting quality companies, broadening the tax base, job creation, and retention. The Development Authority's allocation, which is 0.25 mills, is just over 1.1 million. Still out of this allocation, we have the NCR Blue Cross Blue Shield commitment at 800,000. We're in year 6 of 10 of that. And we also have the Mercer project commitment of 100,000. We're in year 2 of 5 of that. And included in the budget is additional monies to the reserve for economic development of $229,434. The Debt Service Fund, this fund accounts for an accumulation of and disbursement of principal and interest payments. The budget for it is $12.1 million. The millage rate for this fund slightly decreased to 0.34 mills. It was previously 0.47 mills, so everyone should see a small reduction in the property tax bills due to the decrease in the millage here. Metra fund is balanced at 10.89 million. The Metra fund accounts for operations of our public transportation system. It is funded from property taxes, federal and state grants, as well as user surcharges and service charges and T-SPLOST. So there are some budget neutral adjustments from the T-SPLOST funded positions within the Metra fund. There are 4 bus operator positions being deleted, a new chief safety officer G20 position being added, 2 transit specialist G10 positions being added to the budget, as well as the reclassification of 1 full-time bus operator G12 to 2 part-time administrative assistants G12. Again, these are all budget neutral changes. Capital outlay approved for Metra, well, included in the budget is 2.3 million, with about 1.8 million being funded through the FTA grants, where the city shares the cost of expenditures at an 80-20 split, and then 450,000 of T-SPLOST capital is included as well. The Trade Center Fund is balanced at $3,018,339, with expenditures being the same as revenues for no use of fund balance here. The Trade Center accounts for the operations of that particular facility. It's primarily funded from event proceeds, beer tax revenue of $646,000, which is lower than what it was for FY20, as well as hotel motel taxes, which is significantly lower than what it was in FY20. There are no personnel adjustments included in the fund, and a small amount of capital outlay, which amounts to $254,426.
Ms. Alexander, at some point, I would like for you to bring back to us in that trade center and also in the civic center. I know the trade center has quit having events. I know the beer tax is down, although some people are having a little more because of the coronavirus. The hotel motel tax is down. I want to know how much. I think that, I don't know when this, would you put that slide back up? I don't know when these figures were determined, but this is way in excess of what I understand is going on at the Trade Center. And I'm really concerned about the operations of that facility. So I'd like to know when these numbers were determined and how they really, I mean, the hotel motel tax, when we've had 5 hotels in Columbus close, I think that we are going to see a dramatic a dramatic shift in how much hotel motel tax we're going to get. And $450,000, I'm not sure that we're going to recognize that. So I want to delve into this a lot deeper. Trade Center and Civic Center.
Right. Well, that is significantly reduced, Councilor Thomas. The budget for hotel motel taxes, just as an example for the Trade Center, in FY21, we budgeted $650,000. So
we are losing way more than $200,000 in the hotel motel tax over this next year. I just think it's when were these numbers calculated?
Well, we are on a bit of a lag in terms of the reporting for all of our taxes, all of our excise taxes, to include hotel motel. So the March numbers, we do have those. The April numbers, though, which would include, a complete month of shutdown, we won't actually have that until the end of May. But the $250,000 is just for the portion that's applicable to the Trade Center. The budget.
Yeah, I understand that. And I understand, though, if the Trade Center realizes $450,000 from hotel motel tax in next year, that it's going to be, I just think that's too much. Way too much.
Actually lower than where we were, during the recession, which obviously, during that time, hotel motel taxes were still over the $500,000 mark for the Trade Center specifically. And so
in the recession, we did not have 5 hotels that had closed.
Understood.
Well, if I may,
I'd like for us to take another look at this one and at the Civic Center money.
We can, Madam Budget Chair, we can certainly do that, and we'll do it in consultation with the management of those facilities. We've got the President CEO of the Convention Visitors Bureau that will be possibly appearing before you on Tuesday. They've acknowledged the impact that it's going to have on the CVB, and they've made some budget adjustments, and they are going to be asking council to support them in what they need. They need to see their way through what we believe is going to happen. So we'll certainly have CVB, and we'll have the Trade Center, and we'll certainly have the Civic Center to talk more specifically about how they've budgeted with our assistance in projected reductions, and how the sales tax reduction will impact the operations. We think it will be consistent with the decline in conferences, events that they have, because as we go through the first 6 months of the fiscal year, we still think that many organizations, they've already canceled. I know church organizations that have canceled into the new fiscal year because they are not going to want to bring large groups. So I think all of those things have been taken into consideration. And you know how that works with the Civic Center and the Trade Center. When they do more events, they come to you for a budget adjustment that asks you for more money because it's all going to balance out. And when they're reduced level of events, then their revenue is going to be reduced, and it all balances out. But we'll come back to you and make sure that we make this very clear.
You know, I hope I'm wrong, Mr. City Manager. That would be delightful to me. I also know that I personally have been told of several events that I was going to attend that have been canceled because the Trade Center pretty much has canceled everything. But if you would come back with whatever you can, and let's see if we can't. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll do that. No problem.
You understand my concern.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. Yes.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Madam Finance Director, and I concur with Councilor Thomas. There will be an impact, and it'll be a lot more severe than the Great Recession that we went through. Let me just ask this question. Can the Trade Center use their reserves to cover any operational shortfalls or their venue shortfalls over there?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes, sir. They can.
They can?
They can.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No. Okay, so the golf courses, Bull Creek, the budget is 1.2 million here for Oxbow Creek, just over 380,000. With the subsidy to both golf courses, a continued subsidy from the general fund, 50,000 for Bull Creek, 150,000 for Oxbow Creek. The Civic Center Fund revenues and expenditures are budgeted at $5,972,000. The Civic Center Fund accounts for the operations of that facility. It is primarily funded from event proceeds, as well as hotel motel taxes, which this year is estimated at $900,000. Currently, there is no subsidy to the general fund, to the Civic Center Fund from the general fund for FY21. The healthcare fund, the total budget is 23.9 million. I'm sorry, was that Councilor Crabb?
Yes.
Okay.
We went over the two golf courses pretty quickly, but I have some questions about that. Can we go back 2 slides?
Sure.
Have we always subsidized the golf courses? They're not self-sustaining?
for as long as I've been here, there's been subsidies to the golf courses.
I believe the answer to that is yes. The amount has been different, but there has been a subsidy.
And Councilor Crabb.
Mr. City Manager.
Well,
Mayor.
Well, just my comment was going to be back when the Oxbow Golf Course was constructed. It was stated at the time that the course really could not break even simply because of the inability to get enough golfers on a 9-hole course. And we actually had put on sort of a wish list the possibility of adding another 9 holes. But then, of course, as the economy continued to evolve, that just wasn't a realistic option. So as it stands, Oxbow is always going to need a subsidy simply because you can't get enough people out on nine holes. And Bull Creek, I think, had gotten over the last couple of years where due to weather or some other things that they have to deal with, they had fallen a little bit short, but it's never been much over about 50,000. I think under the new pro, he got off to a pretty good start. Their revenues were up about 10 or 11%. So the hope is that subsidy won't be as necessary in the years going forward.
Have we ever, or can we possibly entertain the idea of selling Oxbow to a private entity?
I think that was considered at one time. So I defer to the city manager. I know he had some conversations.
Well, and I agree with what the mayor has said earlier and what the finance director has said. We have, in my tenure, we have always provided a subsidy to Bull Creek and Oxbow. Oxbow more than obviously Bull Creek because it's 9 holes. You could absolutely sell Oxbow to a private entity. But I just want to, and this is before your time and before the time of some of the others on council, the 9-hole golf course was where South Commons is located, down next to the Civic Center. And it was a golf course that was known to be played by African American golfers because they either couldn't or didn't feel comfortable at Bull Creek. And when we were going to construct the Civic Center and the softball complex on that site, those golfers in certain community were assured that those 9 holes would be replaced. And they replaced those 9 holes on the south side. And that's how you got Oxbow Creek. And so you could absolutely go in and sell it. But some may think that that the government, the city, reneged on its promise. And
why would that be a renege on our promise? It's not that we're demolishing the golf course. We're just selling it to another entity to run it, and hopefully the other entity could run it at a profit.
Well, that's the point. That's the point, Councilor Crabb. They could run it at a profit, no question. And so that means the golfing fees would be higher. And, so I'm not here to debate. I wanted you to have the history. And that's why I say that's a legislative council decision. I just wanted you to know the history. You could sell Bull Creek to the private sector. That's 36 holes. And they could, private investors invest because they want to make money, as you know. And if you sell 36-hole golf course in Bull Creek to the private sector, they will come in and they will change the fees and the rates and so forth and put some investment in it. and it's supposed to turn a profit. That's what they would do for Oxbow Creek. And so it's not a decision that I'll get to make, but I wanted you to know the history because I remember the history and I remember the debate. And so I wanted to share that with you as you bring up that idea, that thought.
Well, during the shelter in place, I've probably had more calls about the Bull Creek being closed than anything else. Probably right behind that is the recycling and the yard waste pickup. But, you know, we closed it down and now we're subsidizing it. I just don't see that as one of, if we're going to be struggling on this budget, that's probably one of my lowest priorities right there. But and that's probably not going to help make some of the people that have been calling me happy, but I've got to think of the big picture. And there just needs to be some way that these golf courses can at least sustain themselves and get them off of the subsidy.
Well, and so, Councilor Crabb, you know, you could say that about the tennis center. I mean, you know, that goes around from it's, you know, that's why we talk about EMS in-house. We don't charge what the private ambulance services charge. We don't charge the tennis courts what private sector would charge. We don't charge at golf courses. We don't charge it after school and before school programs because the government is an option to make sure that there's a quality of life that's affordable for all of the citizens.
And may I jump into this conversation, Madam Chair?
Sure.
At the same time, we got to remember that we subsidize a lot of different things in the city besides Bull Creek and Oxbow Creek. We do the arts, we do South Commons every time they need something because they're bringing in an event. We do a lot of different things, and my concern is here, if we're going to consider to sell Oxbow Creek to a private industry, then we need to do Bull Creek too, to make it fair. Because then the community is going to feel that here we go again, something that the South Side has, they're going to take it away. We're going to open a big can of worm. So if we're going to do that, then we need to be fair then. We need to then consider putting both of the golf courses up for sale and let a private entity to buy each one of them and run it and make a profit then. But I'm not in agreement just to do Oxbow and leave it, because that dividing line we've been trying to erase is going to come back thicker than what it is now. So if we consider both closing Oxbow Meadow, selling it, then we need to do the same thing for Bull Creek.
Have we done an internal audit to see if there's a way that they could be more efficient or do something so that our we can take them off of the subsidy and they can be at least self-sustaining and still, I mean, I'm not saying for them to make a profit and, you know, use it as in our fund balance or something like that. I'm just saying to work it somehow to where those numbers that we subsidize them can go down, because that could make, I mean, that's $200,000 that could go into the budget somewhere else.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that. I would suggest that you get with the auditor, because there has been audit on both of these facilities every time staff changes or constituents or someone has concern about the operation of the golf courses. There is an audit done. I would also suggest that you visit them both, and you will. Yeah, you will get a little bit more, a little bit more information on why they're at the point they are and what they can do better. I know that both of them, and I know Bull Creek, they've had some fundraisers trying to get some things done. I'm just saying that if we're going to consider one, we need to consider the other. That's all. I'm not against anything. I'm just saying that if we're going to do that, that's it, just to make it fair.
Ms. Alexander, would you continue?
Yes, ma'am. I think we talked about the civic, the health care fund budget at 23.9 million. Continuing the 70-30 contribution strategy for active employees. Again, no premium increases for calendar year 2021 with the wellness incentive option. And there are other options and items that are immediately following this presentation from our benefits consultant, NFP. The risk management fund, its budget is $4,967,608. Risk management fund accounts for general liability, vehicle claims, and workers' compensation. The CDBG fund, the budget for revenues and expenditures is just over 1.5 million.
Got a question on the risk management fund.
Yes, sir.
How much did we spend out of the risk management fund last year?
The spend, I'll get that for you.
Okay, just make a note.
I'll circle back.
Thank you.
Pull up the finance system. So the CDBG fund, the budget and for revenues and expenditures at 1.5 million. CDBG fund accounts for grant monies received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Community Development Block Grant. There is only one budget neutral personnel change. It's just a title only change to the director's position, being reclassified from Community Reinvestment Director grade 24 to Director of Community Reinvestment and Real Estate grade 24.
Ms. Alexander, if you will, it is now 4 o'clock. We have another hour scheduled, so could we run a little faster?
Yes, ma'am. So the agency appropriations, I'm not going to go through these individually, but the FY20 allocation was 1.2 million. FY21 is 922,000. The difference being the allocation that we had in the general fund for the health department rent, that being to zero now for FY21. That is the reason for the reduction. Some of the non-operating funds, which are funds not for the general operations of the government, and they're restricted for specific purposes. However, they must be budgeted annually and maintained in a separate fund. The non-operating funds for the UDAG or Urban Development Action Grant at 15,000, the home program just over $1 million. There may be a staff adjustment to the home program as we have taken are including some prior year carryover money. Multi-governmental grants at 6.1 million, hotel motel tax fund at 3.6, the police forfeiture fund at 100,000. The DATE fund, our county drug abuse treatment fund at 68,000, Metro Drug Task Force fund at 150,000, the county penalty and assessment fund at 1.2 million, the sheriff forfeiture fund at 50,000. Then we have the Fort Benning TAD number 1 for the Benning Technology Park at 4,000, TAD number 2, which is for the Liberty District at 1,000. TAD number 3, which is for the Uptown District at 800,000. The TAD number 4, which is the Second Avenue City Village TAD at 115,000. Number 4 for the Midtown West TAD is 140,000. TAD number 6 for Midtown East at 25,000. tab number 7, Midland Commons at 1,000. I'm just for most of the tabs where the budget is 1,000, just in adopting a budget, anticipating, that we'll see some collection. For the other tabs, it's currently for the most part what's available in that fund for any council approved projects. For the capital projects fund at 27.5 million. The T-SPLOS fund, which includes the TIA projects as well as discretionary projects at 39.2 million. The 1999 SPLOS at just over 5 million. The Columbus Building Authority lease revenue bonds of the 2003 A series at 600,000. The 2003 B at 4.4 million. 2010 B, we do have some funding to spend down in the 2010 B and C, although those were the funds that we refunded this year. There was 123,000 for the B series, 40,000 for the C series. The Columbus Building Authority revenue bond for 2018, which was for the government center improvements and needs assessments and so forth. That budget is 3.5 million. The Family Youth Coalition at 50,000. The other local option sales tax fund has a revenue budget of 34.8 million, expenditure budget of 36.
Bond series. Madam Budget Chair, I got a question on the bond series. I know we just did well by refinancing not long ago, but certainly we're in a different environment now, and I guess you'd have to weigh the cost. I don't think it's that much, but maybe the benefit is far better for the city. But I would have to ask, have we looked at going back out to the market again and refinancing in this environment? All of our bonds.
No, I mean, there are no additional bonds that are ripe for refunding at this particular time. We don't have. Our debt management policy sort of dictates when we should consider a bond refunding. And if it doesn't meet the savings criteria, then that's not something that we would do. But we do have our financial advisors that do, stay on top of this for us in terms of potential savings that are required according to the debt management policy. And, we keep in constant contact regarding any refunding opportunities.
Well,
right. And we've gone back to the many time recent and asked them to show us the differences of refinancing today.
So Councilor Davis, we can certainly just ask the question of our management group that we use and at least get a response for you.
Right, and I guess there's always fees associated. I mean, we know that, but with the interest rates where they're at now, I mean, with Ariel and all setting it, we may come out way better in the long run, even if we pay a little bit up front to refinance today. So
it wouldn't hurt.
Make that suggestion to take a look at.
Yeah, we can ask our financial advisor to just answer the question. It'll be a simple email or letter or something, and we'll get a response.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just make notes. So the OLOS fund, revenues at 34.8 million, expenditures at 36.3 for use of fund balance at 1.5 million. The OLOS fund is a sub-fund of the general fund and accounts for 70% allocated to public safety and a 30% allocation to infrastructure. The personnel is the same as it has been for FY20. Just in the essence of time, I could not go over the personnel There is no change to the OLOS personnel in terms of what's funded in the various departments. There's also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, there's also no change to the annual supplement that our sworn public safety officers receive, which is $3,121. So some of the items that make up the public safety OLOS budget, a $600,000 subsidy to E911.
Miss Alexander,
Ma'am.
Let's don't go through each one of those individually, if you would.
Sure.
They're all in the book.
That is correct. Debt service from the public safety OLOS amounts to just over $2 million. Most of these are for GMA capital equipment leases, and those leases are denoted here. The only new capital outlay in the OLOS fund is for the police department and the sheriff's office. The e-citations, equipment and installation. This is for 353 units in the police department using their mobile data terminals for just over 730,000. And for the sheriff's office, it's 15 units for using their mobile data terminals or their computers. That's what a mobile data terminal is. It's just over $45,000. And this will be implemented as part of the court management system upgrade so that we can have a succinct and continuous flow of processing citations through our recorder's court, through our new court management system. Councilor Davis, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to, if you would, somewhere as we go through the process, if you'd give us an update on the lease program, how it's working out, and the benefits to the city.
Okay. I will make note of that for the next meeting. Program update. So OLOS infrastructure, which is the 30%, included in the budget is $1.5 million for roads and bridges, $600,000 for flood abatement and stormwater improvements, technology improvements, $827,000, facility improvements of $600,000, debt service, the bonds that we refunded, most of 98% of the debt service is paid from the OLOS infrastructure fund. That amounts to about $5.5 million. The 2019 A bond was for the Virginia College renovation project. And then there's one GMA lease that we're still paying for out of OLOS infrastructure. So this slide is new. I just wanted to provide council with a sales tax industry mix comparing March of 2020 to March of 2019 so that you can see by category. These categories are provided by the Georgia Department of Revenue. They provide these categories, this information in a commodity report that they furnish just sort of periodically on their website. And they did have March's information out there. So I just wanted to show council the March 2019 sales taxes by category. That's the green bar. The gray bar is March of 2020. You can see that there are declines in the accommodations category, construction, food and bars, general merch, home furnishings, some retail, other services, and the wholesale services with increases in the other categories. So this,
Miss Alexander, I want to ask you, this is the March report, but it covers February, is that right? I mean, it doesn't cover March, does it?
No, this is March's collection. So they put this out in April. It's April's. We received the money in April. We just received the money last week, but it's March's collections.
This is where they have collected, and half of the month of March was the shutdown. So
right.
You're saying this reflects that?
Yes. So as the city manager mentioned, March of 2020 was down about 4% from March of 2019. And these are the categories where we had the decreases. That's what's being shown in the chart here. Year to date, though, for FY20, we're still up 4% over FY19.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So then there's the T-SPLOS funding, discretionary project funding of $2.25 million. And again, additional project information will be discussed during the FY21 transportation update next week by Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge. That is it for my presentation. Are there any additional questions?
Angelica, this is Mimi. Madam Chair, can we go back to that side, the bar that you were showing? The one in the slide you just shown, right? Okay, I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. The green is actually 2019, that's correct. And the March is like, is it correct? Is this what we know so far due to the corona where we're at? Is that what we're saying?
Right, this is just comparing March of 2019 to March of 2020.
Right.
And you know, March 2020 included half a month of the economy being shut down.
Okay, so we will be able to see what April looks like next month, because if I heard you correctly, you said that this is a monthly thing?
Yes, ma'am, and it's on a lag. So you're correct. At the end of May, we'll know what April looks like, and I'll prepare another bar chart that compares April of 2020 to April of 2019.
Okay, you read my mind, because this would actually let us know where we are. How's our economy? I think this is another little piece of tool that can show us if it's climbing back up or is it really going back down again. And I'm expecting April to be less.
Right.
What do you think?
We'll see.
Okay. All right then. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
All right. Any additional questions?
I have a couple of questions. Do we expect any carryover? What are we expecting as far as carryovers, overall carryovers from 20 to 20? Well, I'm just saying 20 to 21. I know that's not our budget cycle, but you understand what I'm saying.
And purchase order carryovers or?
Carryovers in jail, what are we projecting? Across the board, we always have carryovers every year. What are we projecting for this coming year?
Right, we do. Not many in terms of any carryovers that would need to be incorporated into the FY21 budget at a later date. There were some due to the shutdown and so forth and the disruption in certain operations. We were not able to put out some bids or RFPs. There may be a small amount of a carryover from FY20 to 21 in terms of, items that were included in the budget for FY20 that were not purchased. The purchase order carryover, though, that is largely determined based on any outstanding purchase orders that we have at the end of the year. So if the service hasn't been completed for a particular purchase order, if we haven't received the goods by June 30th, then that does carry over to the new year. But that's only because we didn't have the item or the service wasn't completed by the end of this fiscal year.
What is the finance department anticipating in overall carryovers?
I mean, it's really too early to tell. What we do.
What were they last year? Do you have an amount from last year?
Mm-hmm.
Or the prior year?
So let me be clear, Council. When you talk about carryover, are you talking about things that
everything we carry over when you come back to us, when we readjust the budgets, when we carry over from the prior year, where any kind of expenditure that does get used, any new revenue or salary savings, whatever it may be. I mean, we usually have those carryovers every year.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to be clear on. You're talking about revenue that's carried over that would then go into the reserve fund and build up the reserve fund, as well as any expenses, and that would come after encumbered expenses, of course.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
And I
so I
don't
mean,
know if they'll project that or not, but I'm
yeah,
just
well,
asking if we anticipating.
yeah, she can get that information for you, Councilor Davis. If and her, I know she's in the office and her team is not there with her, but if they were there with her, they could pull it up and hand it to her. But she has it, and will get it to you. So just know that.
I'm just looking at a picture of how it all plays in going into next year. But how about fuel savings? Are we anticipating any significant fuel savings? I remember one year there was when the market went down. If I'm not mistaken, it was well over. I know it was well over $1 million. I thought it was close to $2 million in fuel cost savings. Is that right? Or are we anticipating any going into this coming year?
Well, I certainly do. The gas prices are down right now, and they've got more oil than they can give away, you know. And so I think that's going to impact, that's going to impact our cost for fuel, obviously, because we typically order fuel every day, and we go through a bid process to get that so that we get the lowest price and best price. So I anticipate there's going to be some savings. Just can't say how much, and she can certainly look that
If
up.
you would, and that's probably, I mean, I'm just throwing it out, Madam Budget Chair. So somewhere down the line, as we go through this, these would be these are questions that are coming. If we can kind of get a picture of that, I mean, I pulled up the other day and was on empty, and it hit $31, and I thought the pump kicked off, so I went to try to turn it back on, and it was full.
Yeah.
And it was half the price of what I'm used to paying. So I know we got to protect something.
Yeah, and I want you to know, as a budget for the budget process, we have our fleet management people to give what we project the average price of fuel will be during the course of the year, so that you don't have one department budgeting an average of $3 a gallon and someone budgeting $1.50. Everybody budgets for fuel at the same rate because it comes out of our fleet management area.
And you're right. And I guess overall, I'm just looking at our stability and as we move forward. But I'm sure we'll get some more updates on this as we go.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Budget Chair.
Miss Alexander, unfortunately, I have a clock right in front of me. We have 40 minutes left scheduled for this meeting, and I know we have the health consultant and Chief Lang and Ms. Hall. And remember that when we started this, I said flexibility is our theme in this. Do we need to reschedule Chief Lang and Ms. Hall? I don't want us to go over our 5 o'clock timeline if we can help it. What do you think? What does the council think? Ms. Alexander, what do you think? You know what they're looking at.
Right. I would just like to, I think the healthcare update can be fairly brief and done maybe in about 15 minutes if we can get to it. And if we get to 5 o'clock and, the other presentations haven't made it up, then we can, I most certainly work with them to reschedule. I know the fire department, it's like 2 slides. So I would hate
for them. I just hate for them to sit around and wait, and then we say at 5 o'clock, oops.
Right. Well, I mean, it's really at your pleasure. I mean, I don't.
Well, let's go ahead with the healthcare, and I'm assuming that Chief Lang and Ms. Hall are already on this call, and if you want to reschedule, send somebody a text and tell them reschedule me. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Miss Alexander.
All right. So our health care benefit consultants are on the line. Tammy, if you could unmute your mic, please.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can. Jeremy, can you cue up the presentation? And Tammy, just as I told you in the email, when you're ready to move on to the next slide, just let Jeremy know. Next slide, please.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good afternoon. I will keep this as brief as possible. This is Tammy Starkey, Vice President with NFP. Today, I'm going to go through our FY21 healthcare budget recommendations and also an overview of how the plan is running. So on the first slide of the presentation, you'll see kind of our agenda for what we're going to talk through today. First, that high-level review of the plan claims experience, and that has continued to run well on the medical and the prescription drug claims. We'll look at some of the top cost drivers that are targeted through the wellness program and the discount for prescription drug programs, and a new program that we're proposing to implement for FY21. We'll look at the funding of the health plan and a proposal to for no change to the plan design or employee contributions for 2021. And then also an overview of a full marketing analysis that NFP completed this year to review the cost, network discount, provider disruptions, and we also reviewed fully insured and self-funded arrangements from all carriers and TPAs. And these recommendations were reviewed with the Employee Benefits Committee in February. We were not able to meet with the Healthcare Task Force in March due to COVID-19, but we did supply City Council with a fact sheet of all recommendations for FY21. So in the health plan overview, we'll see the annual medical prescription drug claims. As we look at the 5-year history on the plan, we see that we are experiencing a declining trend in the overall cost. We compare this for the last couple years, 2019 and 2018 of the plan years to 2016, when the new plans were put in place. So our new plan designs, we also implemented our new programs at the Health and Wellness Center to focus on disease management, early prevention and detection of potentially catastrophic claims exposure on the plan. And so for 2018, we saw, first for 2017, we saw an initial decrease of almost 2% in our claims experience. 2018 further decreased by additional 9%. And for 2019, we have ended at $1.4 million less than we were when these programs were put in place, or about 8%. On the next page, we benchmark the total plan cost for CCG against other public entities, city and county governments, other employers within the region of Southeast, and other employers of similar size. So this includes your total cost for the health plan, your prescription claims, medical claims, and all fixed costs for administration of the plan. So you'll see for 2019, CCG's average cost was about $8,500 per employee, where other employers in the region averaged $10,877. Other employers of similar size, a little over $13,000, and other employers of state and local governments, $11,640. As we look at cost drivers on the plan, we have focused the last few years on some specific disease states that continue to drive costs, but we have seen improvements in some of these areas. Asthma and COPD, we have seen a decrease in the number of patients being treated for this condition, and we've also seen marked improvements over the last 4 years in the cost associated with asthma and COPD. For diabetes, we've also saw improvements in the cost for 2019 compared to 2018. We saw a 41% reduction in our cost for claims related to diabetes. So much improved there, and in the benchmarks, even though we're still 36% above norms, that's compared to 243% above norms in 2018. So continue to see improvements with the programs that we have in place to focus on these disease states. Heart disease is one area that we'll talk through where we see a continued increased trend, but we do have programs in place that also target on those types of lifestyle-related conditions that we can really impact that will in turn impact our heart disease costs. So slide 7, this shows the 4-year trend for the costs related to asthma and COPD. So this is where we see that really marked improvement for 2018 and 2019 compared to the 2 years prior. 2019, we're down 59% from where we were in 2016. So great trend there for asthma and COPD. The next slide, we'll see diabetes, that we really saw an impact in 2019 with our total spend a little over $160,000 compared to about $274,000 in 2018. As we look at the impact that our wellness program is making on diabetes, we had 28 diabetic patients participating in the program that reduced their A1C by 1 point or more in the last year. And so we know that for every point of reduction that we see in A1C, that patients experience reduced complications or likelihood of complications. So things like kidney disease, nerve damage. So we see projected savings by managing those diabetic patients. We also had 42 pre-diabetic patients experience 5% or more weight loss in the last 12 months. And so we know that this reduces the risk of developing diabetes by 58%. So not only is the program managing those diabetic patients, but it's also focusing on those pre-diabetic patients to avoid them becoming fully diagnosed diabetic. On the next slide, we look at heart disease. So this is where we do see the increased trend year over year on the plan. And we do continue to focus on our opportunity for improvement through wellness and coaching within the Health and Wellness Center. We do have 330 patients in the wellness program that have improved their blood pressure by 13 points or more. And so we know that that reduces the risk of heart attack by about 21%. So every time we see that reduced risk of heart attack, we can account for about a $78,000 projected savings from avoiding a heart attack. So savings to the plan, not to mention impacting that person's livelihood. So through this with the program, we focus on the factors that impact heart disease: smoking, cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity. On the next slide, we see the impact of the wellness coaching. So looking at the cohort population that has participated in the wellness coaching year over year, we saw 51% of the participants improve their BMI results, 33% of participants improved their A1C, 46% improved their systolic blood pressure, 45% their diastolic blood pressure, 40% improved their HDL cholesterol, 46% improved their LDL, and then 50% improved their triglycerides. So great improvements and great participation within this program to continue moving that needle on these lifestyle-related conditions. On the next slide, we look at the impact of high-cost medications, and this is something that we've talked about for the last couple years of specialty drugs. So those are those high-cost medications, typically injectable drugs that have represented a large portion of the pharmacy spend for the city. And so for 2019, specialty medications accounted for $1.6 million of your prescription drug cost, which is a little over 26% of your spend. This is an improvement from 2018, where those prescriptions cost $2.1 million and were 36% of your spend. So we are down 24% in our cost for specialty medication. We did roll out the enhanced care model, or that 340B discount program in 2018, 2019, and really have promoted participation and communication of the value of that program, where the plan is receiving 20 to 25% discounts off the cost of those drugs, and the patients are receiving increased medical support, and then they also receive those medications shipped directly to them. So through that program in 2019, the city realized about $362,000 in savings. In 2020, we have 22 newly identified patients that are taking medications that are eligible for the program. And so we're projecting another $255,000 in savings by outreach and participation in the enhanced care model prescription drug program. For FY21, we are recommending implementing another prescription drug saving program that will save both the members, the patient, and the city. And this program accesses manufacturer patient assistance programs where the manufacturer actually pays for the cost of the medication. And so we supply the NFP RX Solutions clinical team will make that outreach to a patient to determine if they are eligible to participate in the program. And so eligibility is based off of the type of medication they're on, their net household income, and then really the overall diagnosis for the medication. And so here we have an example of Cosentyx, which currently costs the plan $26,755 every time that drug is filled. The member right now is paying $150 towards the cost of that medication. So the city's health plan is paying $26,605. Through this program, if the patient qualifies for the manufacturer assistance, they would pay nothing for the cost of the drug. The city would pay a 29% fee for the program and the administration of the program. So the city then would pay about $7,700 for the drug. So with this, the member would save $150 every time the drug's filled, and the city would save $18,890 every time that medication is filled. And so on the next slide, we look at the total impact based off of all qualified medications. We have 6 drugs that are currently being taken by 12 patients on the plan. And if we had 100% participation in this program, it would save the health plan $589,000, over $589,000. And so with this, again, it would be a voluntary program. Outreach would be made to the patient to determine their eligibility to enroll them in the program. And then the medication will be shipped directly to their home or to their physician's office, depending on the type of medication. So really a large savings impacted by only 6 drugs and 12 patients. In the next section, we look at the results of that marketing analysis that was completed for 2021. We did price different options for self-funded and fully insured proposals. We did receive fully insured proposals from Anthem and Cigna. Anthem was actually a 33% increase from our current cost. Cigna was a 17% increase, and the rest of the market declined to quote a fully insured option because of CCG's size. We also conducted a full claims repricing analysis to evaluate the network discounts with all carriers and TPAs in the marketplace. And so with this, we take the last 12 months of actual claims from all of your members and reprice them through each network to determine if we had the same claims in the coming year for 2021, which network would provide us with the best negotiated discounts for the providers and the facilities that our members are utilizing. And that analysis did confirm that Anthem does retain the greatest discounts for the providers that CCG members are utilizing. Anthem's savings were from $1 million up to $3 million greater than the other network options that were evaluated. So those other networks included Aetna, Cigna, Humana, and United Healthcare. We also evaluated a new narrow network option with Cigna that they're calling Local Plus. And this is a partnership that they are rolling out with Piedmont. And so Piedmont Columbus Regional Hospital would be included in that network. The network focuses on lower cost providers that have improved patient income. So they'll call that more efficient, fewer readmissions for hospitalizations, lower costs. And so with this, there would be fewer physicians and hospitals that are included in this network to realize projected savings. With this, Cigna was proposing an option that would be able to be offered alongside our current plans. They were assuming 600 employees would elect this narrow network option, which would be about 28% of our overall enrolled population. So a pretty stout projection of how many would elect that type of option. But if they did realize that level of participation, that would be a savings of about $293,000 for the year. That would include significant provider disruption as we reviewed the top utilized facilities. Only 51% of those would be included in this Cigna Local Plus network, and only 73% of the top utilized professional providers or physicians would be included in the network. So that would mean that any of those that fall out of network and are being utilized currently would not be covered with this type of plan. In the next section, we review the health plan funding recommendations. So on slide 17, the recommendation is for no increase for employees if they participate in wellness. The continued differential for non-wellness participation is 7.3%. So again, this would be no change for those that continue to participate in wellness, and the same differential that employees are currently paying if they do not participate in wellness. And again, wellness participation is defined by completing a personal health assessment screening or a biometric screening, and then participating in coaching if they're deemed high risk based off of the results of that screening. For CCG, this means a per budgeted position amount for FY21 of $5,950. And CCG does continue to fund 70% of the cost for the active employees. We're also proposing an increase to the tobacco surcharge. It's currently $50 a month, and that would be increasing to $75 a month. The next slide, we just highlight those biweekly payroll deductions for the silver and gold plan for the active employees. Again, no change here from their current cost. So for wellness, non-wellness, you see the same differential that they're currently paying for 2020. And then the next slide shows the pre-65 retirees that are also enrolled in the silver and gold Anthem plans. No change to their costs on a monthly basis as well. The last slide is just a summary of recommendations. First, to retain Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield as the self-funded health plan administrator due to the network discounts that provide that cost savings to the city and to the employees. No change to the health plan coverage or employee contributions for 2021. Continue the wellness initiatives so that we further impact those cost drivers and see those improvements. And then introduce that new prescription drug saving option for the manufacturer patient assistance. Any questions?
Councilor Barnes here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, I can't be more happy with the way we are going with this health plan. I'm so glad to see us partnering with the Partnership with Prescription Assistance Program. It's been an invaluable program that's been out there, and I'm so glad that we are incorporating that because it's a huge saving for the patients and actually really huge for the city as well. So I'm just ecstatic with the way we're going.
Thank you so much.
Unmute, Judy.
Anything else from?
Madam Budget Chair, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Mr. City Attorney, are those recommendations ones that we should deal with as the Budget Committee or as council?
I think the Budget Committee should deal with that.
Okay, we can adopt the recommendations as part of the budget adoption. Is that correct?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
It'll be included in the budget ordinance once that's on
correct.
the table.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll need to do that probably in one of our future meetings, because this is not an official council meeting and we can't take action today.
Well, you can do it next week if that's
Yeah.
your pleasure. Right.
Would somebody make sure that's on the agenda for next week then?
Typically, Madam Budget Chair, the recommendations are included in the budget ordinance that you adopt. So there's no separate action that you typically take concerning the recommendations.
Okay.
Well, that's fine too. It'll be included on the first reading version.
I just want it to be official and, correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
City Manager? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Madam, may I speak, or you're going to go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay. City Manager, I want to take an opportunity to follow up on what Councilor Barnes says. I use the clinic, and I can tell you that it's very efficient. Their customer service skills are fantastic. If a medication is going to be really expensive, they do give you materials on how to get a discount or don't pay at all on the medication. And I just wanted HR or yourself, whoever needs to know that it needs to be noted what a well job the clinic is doing. And that was a great decision we did to go ahead and implement it. And with the presentation today, you can see that we are saving money. So I just wanted to say congratulations, job well done to whoever brought this program over to us and to the staff over at the Wellness Clinic.
Well, thank you, and I concur, and it goes all the way back to former HR Director Tom Barron. He had a passion for it, and he made it happen.
And I'm so glad we listened, because I use it and I think it's fantastic, and they're very friendly. You don't have a long waiting period. And like I said, if they know something that could save the patient funding, they will give it to you so that you can take it to the pharmacy. I've experienced that, and I feel very blessed. So once again, to Tom, I know he's not around anymore, but job well done, and to our staff for keeping it going. Because I know at one time there was a lot of discussion over was it worth it or not, but now we're seeing with the presentations and the numbers that it is, and more people are starting to attend it also, which makes it a better performance.
Well, and I just want to say too, current HR Director Retha Hollowell was a good student of Tom Barron. She picked the ball up and she ran with it. So kudos to her as well.
Yes, sir. That's why I couldn't remember everybody, so I was letting you do that.
Thank you, Councilor Woodson. Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Alexander, shall we move?
Yes, next item on the agenda, fire and EMS. Taking that was you, Chief Higgins.
Okay, this is Chief Lane.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank you, Budget Madam Chair Thomas, for allowing us to come before you this afternoon. All right, you can go to the next slide. I wanted to bring before you today a piece of equipment that is most needed in our department at this time, the LifePak 15 cardiac monitors. We had to take off the current LifePak 12 cardiac monitors, defibrillators, which are no longer serviceable per the manufacturer. And to maintain the highest level of assessment and treatment of cardiac patients, it is imperative that we replace these with the LifePak 15s. And we're asking if we can get at least 9 of them. That would at least give us enough to put on all of our ALS units out in the field. And the reason for this, we have more fire trucks than we do ambulances that run off our stations. So there's been a lot of times when the truck has gotten there with a paramedic on it, and if we had this piece of equipment, we could go ahead and start those life-saving procedures on that patient and have a more favorable outcome. So like I say, this is something that it was a burden on me when I brought this before you in the budget, and when I seen we didn't get it, I just felt like, I needed to bring it for you again to see if we could actually add it to the budget. And we understand too that, it would be January, and we understand, the budget issues we're having right now with the pandemic we're going through, but I would at least like for it to be added back into the budget. Then, hey, come January, if we don't have the money there, we understand, but at least let's add it back to the budget in case, there is money there to purchase this.
And that's the 342,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Alexander, I would put it on the ad list.
I have a question.
Okay.
Wait, before you do that, I'm getting a feedback. Is it just my machine or is everybody?
No, I just muted someone that wasn't muted. So we should be good now.
Okay.
Councilor Thomas, that was you that put it on the add delete list?
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, I just wanted to ask because of the way the budget is right now in the economy. If we weren't able to do all 15 at one time, would it be acceptable for you to do at least half and then come back to midway budget and look and see if we can do the other half? Or if some miracle happens that the economy is in a better condition, that we can do the other 7 or 8? Are you reasonable for that in case it doesn't pass for the whole 15?
Yes, Counselor, we could definitely do that. That would be more manageable if we could at least get, there's only 9 of them too, though. So, yeah, if you want to do, say, 4 or 5 at this time, and then, or in January, and then wait till the next budget year and then do the other 3 or 4, I mean, that would be fine. That would definitely help us.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought it were more than that, but okay, I just wanted to know because in case we couldn't do all of them, at least if we could do half and then come back and do the other half just to make sure that you do have something.
But what's on the add delete list is all 9 at 342,000, and we'll have to have that conversation about where that money's coming from.
Correct, and that's the reason I asked that question, because if during the conversation it becomes a problem, then at least we could try to go for at least half, just in case. But I didn't want to make that offer without, seeing how you felt about that, Chief.
Oh, that'd be totally fine. I mean, at least if we get, the 4 or 5 this year and come January, rather, if the money is there, that would be totally fine with me, and also the staff. I mean, at least that would give us a start, to put them out on the trucks that we got out there right now. We'd spread those out in areas where we receive the most calls.
And me, Chief, I'm very a cheerleader for public safety and yourself. And if I can't get the whole thing, I'd rather get some better than nothing. So that's the reason.
That's how I feel too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm getting an echo.
Madam Budget Chair, if I could make a quick comment, not
Sure.
really anything to do with the request, other than to tell you that I support it. We knew that these pieces of equipment were vital. It just came down to a choice on where to expend our resources. But I do want to say publicly before this group, what a great job Chief Lang has done as the interim chief. He stepped in and he has led that organization with integrity and with a focus on serving the public by treating the folks right. And I just want to make note of what a great job he's done and thank him for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, Chief, I read the article in the Ledger the other day about Lieutenant Kinsman and the other EMS guys and what they are going through right now with all of the COVID-19 calls and so forth. I want to make sure that we have enough of the PPEs available for our fire and EMS folks right now. Do we have enough of that? masks and gowns or whatever it is they need? Chief, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yes, Madam Chair, we've been very fortunate that the Public Health Department with the state of Georgia has been able to give us enough supplies. Captain Hazen has been very good about going in and putting supplies in for us each and every week. And at this time, we're doing real well on our PPE, on our N95 masks, our gowns, our face shields, our gloves. So yes, ma'am, we're doing real good right now.
Good, good. Anyone else? I
Councilor
thought I
Barnes,
heard Councilor Barnes.
Yeah, well, you stole my thunder, Judy, because I was going to, I saw the article, and I wanted to ask that question, but also, I also wanted to piggyback on what the mayor said. Chief Lang, you have done an exceptional, with a capital E, job, and I just want to take the time, being that the mayor opened the door, just to extend my appreciation for, I know with something like that, you're wearing two hats. And so I just want to express my appreciation as an elected official of the job that you're doing.
Thank you.
And Madam Budget.
Thank you, Councilor Barnes.
Mr. City Manager?
Since they're passing it around, I just want to join them in saying that to Chief Lang. Just follow the mayor and Councilor Barnes. I've had the pleasure of working with him since he's become interim, and they couldn't have said it better.
Great, great.
Thank you, City Manager.
Anything else for the chief?
Yes, Madam Budget Chair. Chief Lang, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm
Okay.
finished.
All right, buddy. I know you missed baseball season.
Yes, sir, I do.
Look, we appreciate all y'all, the men and women of fire and EMS, and we just appreciate the good work. I hear so many compliments out in the community, and your folks do a good job, and it's you know, you don't have to go very far in this community, and people will tell you about the service that's being provided out there and how they take care of our citizens. Very professional, respectful, and you know, they really value. That's customer service, right? That's customer service. So we appreciate that. I'm going to take a minute to, well, you're here, so you're the first one on the agenda on public safety, but several of us council members have kind of talked about an idea, I guess. It's not a new concept, but you're hearing it all over with some of the things happening now that we're going through the pandemic and a lot of the hazards that are out there. And I know y'all have somewhat a plan. You have a system that how you deal with environments where there may be danger to your personnel. I think the police department does that, the sheriff's department, maybe at the prison. We've been kind of discussing the idea of, they call it hazard pay, but we've been kind of discussing that idea and what it would look like. And I'm not sure at this point, but I know that during this budget session, we do need to talk about it. I first of all would like to understand and define what hazard pay would be, and who are we talking about basically here. I'd also like to see some cost. I'd like to see the impact to from an expenditure standpoint to our government. I do think that in line with what we've been talking about, and it's real, that as we get a better idea and a better picture of what's happening from a revenue standpoint, that, you know, maybe we can make some of these decisions. And I'm not saying today, maybe we can go back and retroact for time dealing with some of these issues. I don't know yet, but I'm putting it out on the table. But I hope that maybe, I'm sure that your department can give us an understanding of that with what the definition of hazardous pay would be, or those kind of conditions, and who those people are and who we're talking about and numbers, et cetera. Madam Budget Chair, I'd like to put that in your lap too, to maybe follow up and see if we can get some kind of, I guess, maybe not a presentation, but some information of what it would look like, and maybe a presentation. But I'm putting that on the table, Chief, because you're the first one, public safety, on the agenda, and primarily, I think it deals with that.
I would think that we would need to have a conversation with the Human Resources Director, with the Fire Chief, with the Police Chief, with, you know, various other people, the Finance Director, to see what is doable, and again, you know, what who would be eligible and all of those kinds of things, and for how long would it last, and all of those kinds of things. So if you would allow me, Councilor Davis, let me get in contact with the city manager and the Human Resources Director, and talk about what kind of who do we need to talk to, and what kind of a presentation do we need to make in order to answer this question. And by doing that, I want the employees to understand, I'm not saying we're going to do it, I'm saying we're going to explore the possibility. Does that work?
Yes, ma'am, exactly. That's my exact sentiments. And that's, I wanted to send that message because I said in the beginning, very hard to make promises and commitments in this environment, but I think that we can look at it, and I think that some of my colleagues may want to speak up about it, because I know this is a conversation that we've all had, and I think it's appropriate. So yes, I think it would be good if you carry the load on that, Madam Budget Chair.
Well, if I might interject very quickly, I would hope that the Public Safety Director would be involved in some of those discussions. We have actually been putting together a number of different options for us to look at and to bring to council, and we're weighing them versus what the cost is. We've already done had some discussion on who is involved, who's included. My recommendation would be that you allow us to continue to work with the city manager's office. We have worked with the Human Resources Director, and let us bring that to you. We've got some things put together that we're going to allow council to kind of take a look at.
You got it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Anything else for the chief? Or Chief, you have anything else for us?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to thank Councilor Davis for bringing that up. I have been in discussions with the mayor about this, and as far as I'm concerned, it would be for the operations personnel only, the men and women that are actually responding on those units out there in the field. None of our staff personnel would receive this pay. When I say staff, I'm talking about all the command staff, fire prevention, training, logistics. None of those personnel would receive this pay. Only the people out there on the front lines actually making the calls. I think they're the ones that are deserving of it, because they're the ones, out there every day responding to these calls, and they're the ones that are in danger, having to wear that PPE, going to the COVID-19 patients. And so it would definitely just be for them, as far as I'm concerned, in my department.
Thank you, Chief. And the mayor is still there, and I'm sure he has heard what you've said. Anything else for the chief?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to say, you got some real heroes in your department, and I've heard some great things about the paramedics and how they're handling, they're brave people and doing what they're doing, but they know what they signed up for, and they do their jobs and do it well. Mayor, I apologize to you, because you're right. You're spot on, but I mean, doing these video conferences is kind of hard to see everybody, and I apologize that you were over in the corner until you popped up there, but you're right, and I appreciate you taking a look at that and looking into it. I think from a budget process standpoint, a lot of us council members have been talking about it, and we look forward to seeing something. And oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody saw the other day, there was probably, I don't know, 16 aircraft that came into Columbus and put up hearts in the air doing aerials with smoke and everything, and made heart designs over the hospitals. And I heard that was a way for them to share the love, Chief, with first responders, which fire department, EMS, the police department, the hospital professionals and workers. And that was a good thing. I don't know if anybody saw that, but it was very heartwarming. I don't even know who those folks were, to be honest with you. I really don't. I heard about the Blue Angels and others, but I don't know who these people were, but they came to Columbus and drew big hearts up in the sky.
I think they were out of Peachtree City, if I recall, a group that does that sort of thing. Anybody else for the chief? Our chief?
I wanted to say one last thing, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the mayor. It's been great working with him, and Councilor Barnes and the rest of the council members. They've been very helpful during this time as I've been serving as the interim chief. I thank you for all your support. I can't ask for a better group to work with. So I just want to thank y'all for the comments that you made. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Ms. Alexander.
It's up to you, Madam Budget Chair. The district attorney and victim witness, they are still on the meeting. Shelley Hall is still here, and the district attorney, Julia Slater, are still on. So if you would like to proceed with their presentation, I'm sure they keep it brief.
Okay, let's give it a go.
All right, Shelley. Unmute. There you go.
There you go. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, Madam Budget Chair, council members, and everyone present.
Go ahead, Shelley. I'll just remind you. Yeah, try to keep it brief.
I have feedback. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Our city, our nation, our world are experiencing issues that no one could have predicted. These are unprecedented times, and I am impressed with the way that our city is stepping up to keep things moving smoothly. My thanks to each of you for all that you do, especially now during this period of uncertainty. I come to you today to point out a dire situation in our local government that must be addressed. I know that you will take this information and help find a solution. As I talk about this area of concern, the solution that I have identified is one to request a full-time victim advocate for the juvenile court. Believe me when I say that the situation is critical. As I begin, please allow me to give just a little background on victim witness and highlight how local judicial growth has impacted us. Slide 2, please. Our office was created in 1989 with the goal of providing dedicated services to individuals who have been victimized by crime. We have a mission to reach every crime victim and to serve them compassionately. The services that we provide are so many and so varied that I cannot possibly list them all. However, I'd like to give you an understanding of how valuable an advocate is to a crime victim. We are with the victim as they navigate their way through our local criminal justice process, and we address any concerns they may have, whether they were impacted physically, financially, emotionally, or any combination of the three. Our goal to provide every victim with correct and current information remains constant. We are there to explain the often confusing legal process in terms that make sense. An important part of our job is to provide education on the difference between restitution and compensation. Although both may offer financial relief, they differ greatly. Restitution is ordered by the court and paid by the offender for damages they caused. Compensation is an independently run program that offers financial relief to eligible victims. They may be reimbursed for medical expenses, funeral costs, crime scene cleanup, lost wages, loss of income, or mental health counseling. Local victim advocates identify crime victims who may be eligible and help them apply for these funds. The services that we provide to crime victims are extensive. Putting it plainly, we will address any issue that a victim experiences as a result of a criminal act. Slide 3, please. When I took the position of Director of Victim Services in 2008, we had 4 victim advocates and a $200,000 budget. Over the next 12 years, we experienced a 300% growth. Although this growth has affected every area of operation, the 3 main areas are personnel, budget, and victims served. When we had 4 advocates, the workload was so intense that we were forced to choose who we could serve, and many victims fell through the cracks. The gradual increase in personnel was a relief, and we now have 13 victim advocates. This added personnel did increase our budgets, where we currently sit at $700,000. But may I be clear, every budget increase came at no additional cost to the city. Our third area of growth is also the most significant. In 2008, we were only able to serve approximately 1,200 victims, yet in 2019, we served 12,000. Let me repeat that. In that short time span, we went from serving 1,200 victims a year to serving 12,000 a year. The reason for this drastic increase was not because crime victims just appeared or our crime rates skyrocketed. No, it's because we were not reaching them. Plain and simple, our office was not equipped to meet the needs of the community. Next slide. It's important to know where our funding comes from and how much each source contributes. The first and largest source of funding comes from federal grants, making up 67% of our current budget. Federal grants are great, and they have played a huge part in our growth, but they also come with many restrictions. The second source is the Local Victim Assistance Program Fund. This is known as the 5% funds. How the 5% funds work is every time a judge orders an offender to pay fines and costs, 5% of those fines are set aside to fund local agencies that work with prosecution to serve crime victims. Back when we had only 4 advocates, this made up 70% of our budget. But now the 5% funds only make up 27% of our budget. And that brings me to our final source, the Columbus Consolidated Government. When our program began over 30 years ago, the city agreed to dispense a stipend of $45,000 annually. This small amount has never increased. Sadly, the contribution from the city makes up a mere 6% of our total budget. Much of our growth has been forced on us, as we have had to respond to burdens placed on this office. A clear example is when the city approved the Superior Court judges to increase their criminal courts to 7. Each judge still expects to have an advocate dedicated to that courtroom. Judicial growth, such as this example, or even specialty courts like RRP, which is Rapid Resolution Program, these programs have a profound effect on our office. We have a clear intent to meet the needs of all crime victims. However, there are 28 different courts throughout our circuit, and a victim might appear in any one of these courts at any time, and they each have an expectation that their rights will be guaranteed. Next slide. Moving on to what exactly is mandated when providing services to crime victims. The Georgia Crime Victims Bill of Rights clearly states that every crime victim shall receive notification throughout all phases of the criminal justice process. Anyone appearing in our courts has an expectation that their rights will be afforded and guaranteed. Although the Crime Victims Bill of Rights has been law since 1995, it is important to note that it was recently elevated to a constitutional level. On January 1st, 2019, Marsy's Law passed to become part of our Georgia Constitution. This enhancement to the original bill has one major difference. There is now a recourse for any rights violations. If a victim believes that their rights have been violated, they are able to file a motion with the court, and the judge of that court must stop all proceedings and respond to the motion. Next slide. I've been asked by the leadership of this city who is mandated to provide these services to crime victims. I was able to locate the official code of annotations that address this. The first official code to look at is 15-18-23, and it's titled County's Duties to Maintain Offices. This code names the governing authority of the county as the entity responsible for funding whatever is required for the local criminal justice system. Next slide. The second code is 15-18-20, titled Authorization to Employ Additional Personnel. This code indicates that the district attorney may employ whomever is needed to perform the duties of that office. Victim advocates are clearly included, and the code further specifies that compensation comes from the local county or counties. Next slide. All of this brings me to the current situation in Muskogee County Juvenile Court. We have identified a desperate need for a victim advocate to be present in juvenile court. The situation is critical because without a victim advocate there, mandated services are not being given to the numerous crime victims who are present. I have made attempts to resolve this issue. First, by seeking outside funding, where after several unsuccessful submissions requesting a juvenile court victim advocate, I've been informed that future applications will not even be accepted. Another attempted resolution was to consider having my advocates try to cover multiple courtrooms. However, these are grant-paid advocates and they are federally funded. Their positions come with strict stipulations on where they can work. Of my 13 advocates, 7 are designated as Superior Court victim advocates. The other 6 are restricted to specific assignments, these being compensation. 2 are designated to early victim notification. 1 is designated as post-adjudication advocate, and 2 are assigned to the outer 5 counties of the circuit. I point this out to help you understand that I do not have available personnel to move to another courtroom. However, the need for a full-time juvenile court victim advocate is not going away. Next slide. The situation is growing increasingly desperate, as I discovered when pulling recent statistics. Violent crime and increased gang activity is a growing trend. We looked at over 400 cases pulled from a 6-month period and noted 332 cases as being a victim crime. Of those 332, we identified 288 cases where the victim received no service. Numerous violations are occurring, such as lack of proper notification, being denied the right to read an impact statement, or being denied the right to seek restitution. I must also point out that these 288 cases often have multiple victims, so in reality, the number of violations is much greater. And any violation of a victim's constitutionally protected rights has the propensity to be a major issue for our criminal justice system and for our city. Next slide. The solution that we have come to is that the city should provide funding for 1 victim advocate assigned to the Muskogee County Juvenile Court. This victim advocate position is a grade 14. The annual salary is $35,140. Adding benefits to the salary, the total cost to the city is $46,940. Final slide. In conclusion, let me reiterate that all efforts to obtain outside funding have been exhausted. Legal mandates are not being met and victims are not being afforded their rights. Now that the situation has been brought to light, something must be done. I am confident that as our governing authority, you will do what is required. The cost for 1 victim advocate is a small price to pay to prevent continued violations and to avoid the legal ramifications that will result. I respectfully ask the city to provide the funding for 1 full-time victim advocate and assign them to Muskogee County Juvenile Court. This concludes my presentation, and I now welcome your questions.
Are there questions?
Madam Chairwoman,
I'm sorry.
Councilor Woodson, wait just a minute. We're getting some terrific feedback, and I'm not sure what the problem is. We were not getting it when Ms. Hall was making her presentation, but as we talk, we are. I wonder if there's someone that can help us with that.
Shelley, if you'll just stay muted while they're speaking, that'll help us out.
Okay. Councilor Woodson.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to add this position to the add and delete. It's not a guarantee, but it's something we can discuss and we can see if we can locate the funding for it, but at least it will be on the add list for discussion.
All right. Anybody else?
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Hall, I do have a question. Are there other staff in the victim witness program that are paid out of the OLOS? You're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
All right. I don't believe anyone in my office is paid out of OLOST.
Okay.
That's my understanding as well, Madam Chairperson.
Hello there.
Hello.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for either Ms. Hall or the DA?
No, but I have one for Angelica, or maybe they can answer it. In this position, is it going to serve just Muskogee County, Columbus, or is this going to do the valley in itself?
No, this position, I'm unmuted.
No, you are unmuted.
No, this position would be specifically and strictly for Muskogee County Juvenile Court.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I was going to say, let's try to find some funding from the other community, but okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Madam DA, do you have words of wisdom for us?
I will tell you that this position is supported by the juvenile court judge. They see a real need for this. We have tried everything we can think of to have admins or other victim advocates or somebody cover this need, and we simply cannot get it done without an additional position. And as the younger people get involved more and more in criminal activity, especially gang activity, this is someone who could really help us serve the victims of this community, and we really need it. I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate being added to the ad list.
And remember that we will discuss the add delete list on the May 26th budget meeting, and at that time the decision will be made.
And we'll be available for any questions you have at that time.
Great. Anybody for these folks? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms.
Alexander. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Ms. Alexander.
Yes, ma'am. And that concludes our agenda for today. I will be distributing the add delete list. I'm sorry, I'm not on video. I will be distributing the add delete list by the end of this week, as well as the schedule for the upcoming meetings as requested. And any additional takeaways that we had from today's discussion. So, Madam Chair, I don't have anything else.
Anybody else have any announcements that we need to do? Please be aware. I'm sorry. Please be aware that that there are department heads that will not be at our meeting. If you as counselors, as you are going through some of the budget material, if you see something that that you have questions about, or that you feel you want to discuss on the add delete list, please bring that to us next week. We are scheduled next week for following council, and our schedule says 12 o'clock until 3 o'clock. I'm not sure how long that council session will actually last, but we will take a short break between the council and the budget and then get to it and hopefully be concluded by 3 o'clock. I appreciate your staying for an extra 20 minutes tonight. And is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Great job, Madam Budget Chair.
Councilor Vaughn.